Hello, everyone. I'm Captain Logan, and look, it's Austin, the Day Ghost. Austin, we can't hear you, man.
Still?
Oh, there you go. Now you're good.
Okay. Sometimes I think it takes like a second when I pull the mic
Yeah, well,
down.
they don't start talking right away. Just pull it down, and then wait a second. Yeah, but then that's also awkward. It's like, why is he this is a dramatic entrance for Austin.
Well, and it was down, so I assumed it was fine. Like I pulled it down and said hello, and I don't know,
And
I guess it didn't
we
work.
got nothing. Yeah, well,
Yeah,
I need a new computer. You need a new headset. I don't,
apparently,
it's
yeah.
all kinds of problems. Welcome tonight for another speculation cast. We did one of these for DC right after James Gunn was announced as, or I guess a little while after anyway. James Gunn was announced as the new head of DC Films, and we should have waited and done that until we got the slate. I think, Austin, because we could do a whole different one now. But we finally decided to go ahead and do this for the MCU, and I thought now would be a good time after the kind of lukewarm reaction a lot of people have had to Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and the giant dip that had second weekend. And the big question on I think a lot of fans' minds right now is where is MCU going from here? Are they still too big to fail, or can we kind of see maybe some writing on the wall now that they're going to have to really do some adjusting and make certain calls to get a lot of people back in their corner again? Is it in an unsalvageable place? Like, has it gotten really awful to where a lot of us just don't care anymore, and no matter what they do, we're going to have kind of a decline? Or was Phase 4 just kind of a hiccup? And so we're going to talk about all of that and what we think the future with 5 and 6 and beyond is going to be like. I want to talk about Fantastic Four and X-Men and the importance of those things. I want to talk about Kevin Feige and what his career is going to be like. I want to talk about the potential or lack thereof of the MCU lasting the 80 years that Kevin Feige has said he wants it to last. And one of my
Yeah,
big questions, Austin, and I'll throw this out right out the gate in case I forget to get to it later. We don't have to talk
yeah.
about this yet, but the big thing I want to explore is whether or not we think they're likely to recast original founding Avengers characters, like major characters that are gone now that were the bread and butter and the lifeblood of their franchise. Can they live without those characters now, especially given some of the characters that people haven't latched onto as hard, or characters they've introduced in TV shows that maybe people have liked, but not everybody has actually taken a look at? Is it possible, or maybe even plausible, that we'll use the multiverse as an excuse to bring back the huge characters that people cared about in the first place? That's one of the big things that I want to talk about. So
When I have an
Austin,
answer, at least for the big two. Well, I mean, we have the Captain America one, at least for now. I don't know about like in like 10 years time, but I have an answer for Iron Man.
okay, cool. So we'll get into all of that and more, I'm sure. Welcome. Thanks for watching live if you're doing that. We appreciate you checking in on us after the fact. And feel free at any time during the program. We'll go for at least an hour, probably longer. We're long-winded. We tend to do these live podcasts for a good long time. Feel free to leave a super chat in any dollar amount at any point during the show, and we'll guarantee that we'll chat about your opinion or your idea on this topic, and leave regular comments as well, and we'll try to check in with the chat here and there. Austin, the first place I want to talk about is just how splintered the fan base seems right now.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, right? Because we've been planning on doing the MCU speculation cast for months now, if not almost a full year. Um, around a little bit under,
We keep
but
talking about it. Now seems like the right time. Like
mhm,
we're just
yeah,
getting into Phase 5. We've already had the first movie from that, and it's not performing great.
yeah. Well, and what I was gonna say is that I feel like our reaction to this is different depending on when we did it. Like, if we had done it after SDCC, like we had initially said, I think our feelings towards stuff would be a little bit different. Same with after the D23 reveals, and I think that's interesting because I feel like we're probably a little bit more down in general than we maybe would have been back then. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I don't mean to be fickle about it, where, like, I don't mean to be Warner Brothers right after BVS about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely.
But I feel like in general, I've been, yeah, like depending on what you're hearing is coming next and the last couple of things you saw, yes, absolutely, you're gonna have different feelings about your own excitement and whether you think you're gonna care about a lot of individual products and stuff. When we got out of Endgame, my immediate reaction was they really need to take like 3 years off from making movies. Like, make us long for it. Make us want it again. Because you basically had a big ending. And then you said, oh, but no, stay invested. Like, care. We're not only going to keep going at the rate we were, but we're going to give you 3 times more as soon as COVID is over. And I think it actually helped them a little bit that they had to wait a while on some things. That wasn't planned. They were going to immediately start throwing more stuff at us. And I wished they'd taken their time and made us, really, really miss it for a while. I think that was their first misstep, was not doing that. And I feel a little bit vindicated with how lukewarm a lot of fans feel right now, all the way to not caring at all, which I'm also hearing a lot of right now. People that used to be super entrenched in this stuff and were really invested that are like, I mean, there's the 2 or 3 projects I care about, but I'll wait till Guardians 3 or FF or whatever it is, but I don't really care about anything else. Like, I'm hearing a lot of that right now.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's weird too, right? Because with Endgame, it's very much the ending of what we started with, with like the original Avengers stuff. But like Spider-Man had only just started, like Black Panther had only just started. So I never really had the, oh, okay, stop here mentality with Endgame, because I was like, but there's all this new stuff that, is pretty cool. And like all of that would just be cut short. Um, my thing with
Well, I don't
COVID,
want to argue with you about it, but I don't
yeah.
think it had to be cut short. I think they could have kept shooting stuff and just waited a while before they released anything.
No, and that's what I was going to say is with the COVID thing, my main issue is that they had, an extra year or so to, put pen to paper and really work things out. And they're still writing movies on the set. And like nothing's really changed with that. And it's gotten worse in a lot of ways. And or at least it's just not working.
Well, the question is, how much of that is that they've overextended themselves? It's like the Vulture in Spider-Man. I've overextended myself. How much of it is that they've done that and that they've got some of the same people there really burnt out? How much of it is maybe Feige needs a break? Maybe he needs to do something different. He's talking about wanting to be promoted and get and be the head of creative projects in general and at Disney and not just Marvel. I think some new blood could help all of that a lot, but like in some ways it needs to be a well-oiled machine. I think it's become too machine with a capital M. And there was already, you know what I mean, like more of a kind of like Fritz Lang's Metropolis sort of machine, as opposed to just we all know what we're doing and we have like a schedule and it's planned, but there's still like creative storytelling juices behind everything.
Yeah, well, and especially with the Disney Plus shows, I think people nailed the formula like really early. Where one of the things people constantly make fun of with those is that the second last episode is always the flashback episode.
Yeah, starting with their first one.
Starting with their first one, and when it happened in WandaVision, I think a lot of us went like, "Oh, this is pretty neat," and then it kept happening and happening.
They do it in Moon Knight.
It was supposed to happen in She-Hulk, and then they re-edited it to be the first episode.
Which may have been smart. I still haven't seen that show.
I mean, you don't have to.
Well, I mean, I'm going to see everything eventually, probably.
Yeah, of
but
course.
The nice thing is they're apparently, and I think this is smart. I think they're learning their lesson to some degree. I guess we'll see, but apparently they're only going to put maybe only 2 live-action Disney Plus shows out this next year. That was the last thing I'd heard. Although I wonder about Daredevil, like when that's supposed to happen.
When Daredevil, I think, is supposed to start filming next month.
Oh, okay. Well,
So
that's
that's
supposed to be
probably
an
a while away.
18-episode show, so I could see that being like the beginning of 25 or something.
Yeah, well, in the
Or I'm
Echo
sorry, 20,
show,
24.
they'll need to release the Echo show before they release Daredevil too. So
Yeah, good call.
sometime after
Because
that
I'm sure
comes
that
out.
will influence it in some way.
But Daredevil will be the big thing with Disney Plus, I think, because that's the one show they can't mess up. And I don't mean like no matter what, it'll be good. I mean,
That has to work.
if that doesn't work, people will be really mad.
Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, that's the big precedent, right? I mean, the first MCU related or ostensibly in that continuity show is still, in my mind, the first season anyway, the best screen adaptation of superhero anything ever.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't
Yeah,
that
no,
crazy?
Daredevil's great.
And isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Because we've never nailed it like that again.
Well, and Netflix took like, I don't know, maybe like 2 years before you started to see the major decline. Like, nothing was ever as good as the first season of Daredevil, but it was like, oh, okay, Jessica Jones
First half
season
of Luke
one's
Cage
really
is
good.
awesome. The first season of I think the first season of Jessica Jones is quite good.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think it has missteps, but I even really like season 2 of Daredevil, and then
I
after
do
that,
too.
it starts to fall apart.
And I mostly like the third season also. I don't think it's terrible.
Oh, I think it's probably better than 2.
Yeah.
I think it's up there with 1. But anyways,
The Bullseye stuff is a slog. And I like him, but it's a little slow.
My thing with Bullseye is that Cox and D'Onofrio are up here, and Bullseye's just like, yeah, he's pretty good, but like he's not up to their level. But with Disney Plus, it was immediate because their first season was, oh, this is really good. It's got some missteps, but it's overall really good. And then the second show they released was like their Iron Fist with Falcon and Winter Soldier. Like it was terrible.
And still somehow more entertaining than that show.
And
it's, I think, well, it started. Look, that show didn't lose me until the third episode. I thought the first 2 were solid.
No, I thought the first episode was really bad, and I thought the second episode was okay.
Yeah.
So it like kind of built me back up, and then after that, it completely drops off.
I don't know. Now we're just reviewing shows.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever had with a TV show the whiplash effect that I had with U.S. Agent. Because I thought he was spectacular initially. What happened?
I really like that actor.
I was going to say you can't say the actor's not great.
Yeah. No, and I've seen him in other stuff, and he's really good.
See, I don't know if I've ever seen him in anything, but
yeah, no, that's Kurt Russell's son. He's a really good actor.
Oh, I wonder if I knew that.
Yeah, and he becomes a different character at the end of the second episode, where he's a really nice guy, and then you hit the last scene, and they go, okay, he's the bad guy now.
And then it really gets weird later.
Yeah, no, exactly.
But yeah, so but back to what you were, because I think you made a really good point at the beginning of this, that we don't want to look like flip-floppers, but it's really easy to be like, okay, at this particular point, it looks like things are maybe turning around or, staying the course and are pretty decent. And then you get weird announcements where you see 3 or 4 not great things in a row and you go, okay, what are we doing? And can we come back from this? And are people going to stay invested with it? I don't want to say on a high, but really cautiously optimistic during WandaVision, because that show was so interesting and taking risks and really different and didn't seem to care if it was losing people, like in a good way. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't obsessed with accessibility. Not everybody was going to be into that. And it was kind of small and intimate, and it looked good, and it was putting its money in the right places. And then then it turned into the Monica Rambeau show, and don't get me wrong, I like that actress and I like that character, but as soon as it went, now we have to have a whole episode to explain to an audience that's not with us what was really happening in the background. I was like, oh no, you're holding her hand too much, and then the writing got not as good as I thought it was at the beginning for the first couple episodes, and then the last episode is not great and was a little rough and a little rushed, and I was like, Okay, so you guys didn't have you weren't firing on all cylinders like I thought you were. And then Winter Soldier happens, and I liked Loki fine until the last episode, which is kind of the story with a lot of these things, right?
Yeah, that loses me. I thought that show was okay until the last two episodes, and the last two episodes were bad enough that it soured the entire experience for me, I thought.
And then movies start coming out that I'm finding real lackluster. And the only thing that the only things that really impressed me in Phase 4 movie-wise were things that were super polarizing that not everybody cared for. Like Eternals was, I think, am I remember this right? The first not fresh thing on the tomato meter from Marvel, and I liked that movie. Okay, I thought it had huge problems, but I enjoyed it, and again, I appreciated the risks it was taking and that it was tonally different from anything else they had done. And then I loved Multiverse of Madness, and I keep running into people that say that's the worst movie in that phase, or at least one of them, and I don't understand that. So even if you and I think that's crazy, I think most everybody agreed on the really great movies in the kind of missteps in the first three phases. And we're
Absolutely.
in this place where it looks like politics now.
No, because the universal best movie of Phase 4 is No Way Home to the general public, and most of us on the channel don't either really hate that movie or just kind of like that's not good,
Yeah.
you know.
And that's kind of where I'm at with that,
Mhm.
where it's more fun than I thought it was going to be, maybe, but it's not the right direction for that whole thing, and it's real contrived, and I really dislike that ending.
Mhm. Yeah, when I think the ending is maybe the only saving grace moving forward for Spider-Man.
Well, I see
That
what you say. That I'm just saying for that narrative, I think it's
no,
awful.
I know. But I also feel like they're not gonna own it. Like they're gonna bring back those characters, and it's just gonna go back to being another Spider-Man movie
Yeah, we're gonna have to
as
spend an
the reboot.
entire movie just getting kind of back to status quo. I hope not.
hmm I'm worried about that. I don't know. We'll
Yeah,
see.
there's every reason to be. So so I don't know. It's just a weird place to be with it. Where I don't think it's the MCU on the whole is unsalvageable or anything. I don't think we're at an Arrowverse place with it yet, but I do think we're sitting on the precipice of it if we're not careful. And I do think that there's definitely some kind of damage control that's going to happen moving forward to get some of the consumer confidence back, because I think they're losing it some.
Mhm.
And if the new DCU puts out movies that people are more invested in and that are a little bit smarter and they don't feel like are as formulaic and there's a little something for everybody, they're gonna have superhero options now, like somewhere else to go where they can just drop out of the MCU entirely. You know why people stopped paying attention to the Arrowverse? Because it both got and people hung on to that so much longer than I thought they would. People that were really into those shows in the first place, like rode on Flash so much longer than I could bring myself to, and even Arrow, and even Legends, which was really awful. And I'm like, and I'm thinking the only reason that people finally jumped ship with that, when the writing got to the point where even the most diehard, obsessed fans of those shows couldn't ignore it anymore. So, well, at least they had the MCU, and at least they had Netflix Marvel shows, and like there was someplace else to go. So I've always said that a lot of superhero fans like both DC and Marvel, and they don't have to be in massive competition. But if one's not good, that's the flip of that. If one's not good, everybody's going to jump ship over to the other one.
I mean, that was the MCU and the DCEU.
That was, and this is comics,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That was Marvel Now during the worst period of the New 52. And then that flipped around when it was the not as good Marvel Now or whatever in the world they called that, and Rebirth. It flips, and it seems like
Yeah.
movies are starting to be this way too, where they
Yeah.
can't both be good at the same time.
Yeah, no, exactly. And no, it's really interesting to me because I had a family dinner last weekend, and everyone was just kind of like, "Oh, Marvel, like, I really liked the last like five or so movies. Like, they haven't really been very good, but I'm really excited for Guardians." And I go, "Yeah, like that. That's gonna be a sure hit, I'm sure." Did you know that the guy who makes it is also the head of DC now? And then they go, "Oh, like." That's really interesting. Like, I want to see what he does with that
Yeah.
because their movies are really bad.
Yeah. And I mean, I think something we're hitting on here is that it's all about perspective. It's all about, you know, it's all relative, right?
hmm Yeah, exactly. And I think it's interesting,
If one house
talking
is
to.
awful, it makes everything else look a little better. And like, I hate to be that way. I always try to be more objective than that. But I find that if I'm watching nothing but bad movies, or mostly nothing but bad movies, even if I'm giving negative reviews to everything I'm looking at, my standards are still lowered by it. So if anything is half decent, now it looks brilliant.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely.
And I worry about that happening with this, but flipped with where again, if Gunn starts putting out great stuff with DC or stuff that a lot of us are liking, forget the crowd that's gonna hate everything they put out no matter what because they lost Snyder and all of that.
Mhm.
I
Oh, like 10 people, yeah.
forget that. Yeah, and a lot of Twitter bots that are very opinionated. There's AIs that really care about the Snyderverse. Is all I'm saying. But
Yes, there is.
when that happens, it's going to make what's going on with Marvel look a lot worse. And DC's mediocrity has made even the kind of more lackluster Marvel movies look like Phase 2 and 3.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even going back to like phase 2 and 3, it would be like, oh, like Aquaman, or I keep doing this. Ant-Man.
I don't understand why that keeps
I
happening.
don't.
Yes, they both start with an A.
Start with
Okay.
an A, okay? That's literally the only reason. Uh, you know, you go, okay. Ant-Man's like very like middling, like it's whatever, who cares? But it's not BVS, which came out like 4 months later. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So
and
it stuff like that looked
it's
better.
not mean spirited.
Yeah, it's just the first two Ant-Mans, because I haven't seen the third one, are very much just light family kind of fluff movies. And that's all they really are trying to be, and like that's
Yeah. Well, and it'd be nice to have that and also a lot more variety with a lot of other things aimed at a lot of other audiences.
well, and that's the other thing, with DC specifically is that Gunn has talked about how he doesn't want to have like a house style, like a
Yeah.
house tone. And it would be really nice with Marvel if we could get away with that, especially, as we keep just hiring Rick and Morty writers, and that's becoming the MCU at this point, where it's just all that.
Yeah, are they well, there's so many different directions I can go after you said that. Do you feel, Austin, like there's a like buying our own press problem there? I mean, there clearly is with advertising and stuff, where it's like, oh, we have to show trailers of people like freaking out and applauding at our movies to sell our movies. Like, yeah, we get it. You have a fan base that likes your movies. Like, you have to use the fan base, to sell it to the fan. Okay, that seems real self-indulgent to me. But is there a buying our own? Or maybe that's not even the right way to put it. But just I don't know, getting too complacent in our success or something, where we go, that oversimplifies us or oversimplifies the movie making, where we go, well, people really like our comedy and we've become comedy movies, so let's really steer into that. Because I feel like there's a lack of self-awareness there, where they simultaneously steer too much into comedy, but when you listen to Feige talk, he takes it kind of seriously, and it seems like he still thinks they're making like hard-hitting dramas, and that they have a lot of different tones that are for a lot of different people. Like, I can't tell if he's just saying what he thinks people want to hear, or if he really believes that he's doing what Gunn is saying he wants to do with DC.
No, and I mean that's very true. I mean, I feel like we've always kind of said that, where it's like, oh, the MCU is very different. Like Captain America isn't, Guardians. Like Iron Man's not Ant-Man, and it's like they're different, but like not by a lot. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's there's still the kind of house style to it, and sure, one of them's in space, one of them's a bit smaller, but there is a kind of similar tone that they're going for, and they're going way too far into like the farce side of it right
Yeah.
now for like everything.
And that's
And
what Arrowverse did. Like I'm seeing. Look, I realized that not everybody has looked at any of those shows, and that at its highest popularity, they got like maybe 2 million views or views. I'm putting this in YouTube terms, but like 2 million viewers an episode. But if you looked at any of that stuff, there are a lot of parallels to make in the mistakes that Marvel is making right now. And with Arrowverse, it was that stuff was more popular than that network had ever seen. And so they start steering too far into memes and the things the fans are real excited about, and you just wish that you could put all the creators in a room and isolate them. I mean directors, writers, producers, everybody, grips, everybody. And you wish that you could just put them on like a self-sustaining island, Austin, where they have no idea how the rest of the world is responding to anything they're putting out. They don't even get to see box office results. They're just making art and hoping anyone is looking at it. And, well, our bills are being paid, our lights are on.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess we get to keep making movies. If they could do that, I almost guarantee you we'd be in a better place right now. Now, if you don't know what's really working for people, you can't. It doesn't tell you that, and so there's maybe certain good decisions that were made that wouldn't be made otherwise. But by and large, I think we'd be in a better place if it could be like when Tim Burton was making Batman and had no idea across the pond how anybody was reacting to the Michael Keaton news and all of that. Like he didn't know that people thought that was stupid. He just made his movie.
Well, and another thing is that a lot of the people aren't passionate about this stuff. And that's not to say that you can like hire somebody that, isn't an Ant-Man fan, and then they can't turn around and make a great Ant-Man movie, and become a fan through that. But that's clearly not what's really happening right now.
No, and sometimes that sense of perspective can really be a boon for a project.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I've been watching. Cap knows about this, but the chat I'm sure doesn't. I've been watching. Mark Millar has a interview channel on YouTube now, and I think it was the one with Rob Liefeld he did, where he talked about how in 2017 he had a meeting with executives for the MCU. With a new director that they wanted to hire. And he doesn't go into specifics, but I can kind of paint a picture of who it is. But he says that, they came in, they had never read a comic before. They were like, I don't know any of this stuff. And then they made a movie that made money. So now Marvel's like, hey, make more movies, like do more for us, even though they have no interest in any of this. And I feel like that's becoming more and more apparent as the MCU goes on.
Yeah, and then you burn people out, and sometimes they fire people that maybe they should have hung on to, but they just didn't give them enough rope to make what they wanted to make in the first place. Like, I still have a hard time buying that Kenneth Branagh wasn't a great director choice for Thor.
Mm-hmm.
I don't buy it, but he didn't make a great movie.
Yeah,
and he didn't have a good experience on it.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And I'm sure, like, if we got like a full trilogy from him, it would have looked more like Thor movies than what we got after that first one.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Even if everything with that first movie was his fault, I bet he would have turned a lot of it around. He's a good director. Like, I liked a lot of his stuff before.
Well, and Matthew Vaughn was supposed to.
He also should have cast himself in it. I've always thought that. I don't know as who, but whom, but he should have cast himself in it.
I don't know. He can be Odin. I was
going to say Hopkins was a good idea, but he could have played Odin.
Yeah, one Hopkins had such a bad experience with Thor 2 that he wanted out after the second one.
It was so weird that he even came back for Ragnarok after the
It
interview he
was.
did where he said like, "No, I think I've done enough of this." And then suddenly there he was. I don't think anybody expected him to be there.
Yeah, they probably went, well, you're only going to be in 2 scenes, and in one of them you can be a goof because you're just Loki. And he
Well,
was like, okay, I'm
and
fine.
how many times now have we heard specifically Marvel actors say, you know, I'd be happy to come back if you'd kill me. Like I feel like that keeps being said.
That was Michael Douglas, because when
Oh
Michael Douglas
yeah,
said that with Ant-Man, I went, "Oh, he doesn't die in 3?"
I was
Every
actually
single every single Ant-Man movie, I go, "Well, obviously they're gonna kill Michael Douglas," and then he hasn't died in any of them. So
Austin, let's go
weird.
ahead and do super chats real quick
Yeah, go
before
for
we
it.
get too far away from them. And then we've been kind of dancing all around stuff. We'll start doing predictions and things here in a little bit. Ryder, $2 super chat. Could have an actor for Black Panther switched in No Way Home? I don't know what that means.
Uh,
Switched?
so I think what he meant is because after Chadwick Boseman died, a lot of people wanted them to bring like another actor in through the multiverse, and I wouldn't want that
I wouldn't
personally.
either. If you're going to do it, just recast. Just straight up
Just own
recast.
it.
Absolutely.
You either recast or you don't. You don't middle ground it like that.
Now, I'm gonna be hypocritical about this for a second. I
Go for it.
think
I love hypocrites.
I guess because I think they might use the multiverse as an excuse. I alluded to this earlier to recast major characters that we've already written out of the MCU, and if they choose to do that, I don't know how I feel about that. It's kind of gimmicky and it might look desperate. I could see it working in certain cases, maybe depending on what they do with it. But in with that particular case, if they wanted to use that as an excuse to bring in new actors where they're from a different universe and they don't look like, you know, Robert Downey or whoever, but they're Iron Man. Even though I don't love that they've been doing that with Multiverse, where some people all look like the same actors and sometimes they don't, especially in the case of Spider-Man, where it's because they were already played by another actor that we decided to rope in the old continuity from another movie. I don't love that, but we've already got that inconsistency that, like, I guess I'm sort of okay with it. Like, I think it's almost better than let's keep bringing Downey back after he got a send-off everybody liked. Like, I'd almost rather it be another actor. That, you see what I'm saying? Like, I'm being
Yeah.
hypocritical, but you have to kind of just show me a situation, and I go, yeah, it's better than this other thing. It's not ideal, it's not perfect, but so if they went, so like I don't like that with the Chadwick Boseman thing because I don't want it to be another character.
Hmm.
Do you see what I mean? I would want it to still
Yeah,
be
because you.
T'Challa, so recast it. But with Tony Stark, if you have to do it, no, that should be a different character, and then I don't care as much. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. One with Iron Man specifically, I don't think there's, or Downey and I think Chris Evans. I don't think there's any way we don't bring them back through the multiverse for Secret Wars, like where we bring those actors back just so we can have them in that big finale thing again, and we can have Downey hanging out with Hugh Jackman and Tobey Maguire.
When those kinds of gimmicks are probably going to, at least for a while, if they space them out, still be big enough novelties that they can make $1 to $2 billion at the box office. We saw No Way Home do those kind of numbers, and it was a huge precedent breaker. We'd never really seen that in movies. We had in TV, but nobody cares about that. And it was a thing that had never been done before. And Infinity War and Endgame were kind of a thing that had never been done before, and Avengers was a thing that had never been done before. So these things have done huge numbers because they're big novelties that you've never seen before. But I think they can still ride on that if they space it out, do it every few years, and still put actors together you'd never thought you'd get to see in the same movie, or characters together that you never thought you'd see. And I think that they're likely to use that as a strategy to make up for lost box office for movies that didn't do as well as they wanted them to.
Well, the only issue with that is just how much of the box office gets split between like the big Avengers stuff, you know, where like all of the major actors are getting their percentage off the box office, and like they're all getting paid a ton of money.
That's a good point. And you didn't have that so much with No Way Home because you had
Yeah.
one lead actor, and then your other two Spider-Mans were supporting characters that certainly weren't making even as much as their star was. I wouldn't think.
There's no way Tobey Maguire came in was making 50 million plus like, you know, 10% of the box office. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Although with
And
No
I
Way
don't know
Home,
what they
it
paid
was
Tom
split
Holland, but
between-
there's no way he was making even what Holland was making.
No,
I wouldn't think.
I doubt it. And then obviously with No Way Home, it was split, you know, between Disney and Sony. So it did have that.
That's a good point.
But
And I
that's
don't-
about it.
And you had a large cast, so you did have a split with like villains and stuff, but a lot of that was like glorified cameos. I hesitate saying that because they got more screen time than cameos, but they're not like, you know, it's not like Michael Keaton in Homecoming.
They're really small roles.
They're
Yeah,
smaller
it's like
roles.
it's a little bit bigger than like Zaz in Batman Begins, but not by much for some of the characters in that.
No, I mean, these characters got more to say than the characters I'm about to throw out, but it's Toad and Sabretooth and X-Men.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it is. They may even get a bigger role than like Sandman or Lizard.
Yeah, well, I mean, Sandman's a special effect.
So's Lizard.
Right, or $2 super chat. Would have Infinity War Part 1 and 2 been a better title? I'm going to say yes. Like, absolutely yes.
I don't really have an opinion on that. I don't know. I've never really cared. I think it is a missed opportunity that they didn't just call the second part Infinity Gauntlet like it looked like they were going to.
Yeah.
But whatever. I don't really have an opinion on the title thing.
Well, this isn't just a taste thing for me, Austin. I think there's an inherent mistake in the advertising with Endgame, and that's why I'm saying a kind of a resounding yes. It should have been 1 and 2. The Russos seemed, and I don't want to throw it at their feet because I don't know how much of this was their decision and how much of it was Feige and Disney, but they went on and on about how they're not one movie, they're two totally separate different movies, and I'm like, no, they're not. Like, yes and no. You know what I mean? Like, Infinity War is certainly totally a little bit different. It has to be, but Endgame is at the very least like a straight up sequel to that movie, obviously. And so
I think all they
1
meant,
and 2 would be fine in the same way that like Back to the Future Part 2 is fine. You know what I mean?
when I think they just meant like it's not half a movie and half a movie. Like it is.
And in some ways it is that too, but you're right. Like I get why they said that, but I mean,
it's a little bit because like the ending.
Infinity War is still a movie without an ending.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Is the beginning of Endgame is the ending of Infinity War, so it does have like that little bit of a thing like that. But then it jumps 5 years and it's kind of different.
Now it's kind of a different story. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of, except when you disintegrate everybody with the blip at the end of Infinity War, you know they're going to do something to get them back, and that's the thing you're waiting to be resolved. So in that way,
that's in that way it is, the part 1, part 2 thing. But I think all they meant by that was like, the first movie is like a Thanos movie where it's Thanos doing this thing and his story ends with him winning. He does the snap and he leaves. And then the second one is the Avengers movie, and it's about them trying to fix that. And it's like a weird time travel movie, and like it's different in that way.
Yeah, no, that's
I'm just trying to analyze what they said. Like I said, I don't really have an opinion.
Yeah, but all I'm saying is, even if you agree with that, that's not really a reason to not keep the 1 and 2. But even if you don't do that, like you said, call it. I don't like Infinity Gauntlet because in the first 5 minutes you get rid of the gauntlet, and most everything they took from Gauntlet they used in their first movie.
But I think calling it Infinity Gauntlet makes sense because the entire movie is about them building their own Infinity Gauntlet, and then the climax is them fighting for that. So like that makes sense as a title for that movie. Yes,
that's fair, but as an Infinity Gauntlet comic fan, I don't want the Infinity Gauntlet movie.
Cut away the comics.
It's
One Piece, I can understand
But
that.
if you did that, isn't it funny how flipped it is? Because in the comics, you get Gauntlet first and then
And
Infinity
then
War,
war.
but you essentially got you flipped it.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that feels too definitively the end of the MCU,
Oh,
and
yeah. Absolutely.
and I wouldn't have used the word end anywhere in that title if it was me. Like, it's too definitive. It feels too wrapped up. Now, the nice thing about that is that if everything is awful after that, I'm not saying it has been, because I've liked some things, but if everything is awful after that, at least you got 3 solid phases with
You've got an ending.
with just a couple of not great movies, and you have an actual ending. But I wouldn't have called it that.
Mhm.
Because then retroactively, I think maybe you lose people even a little bit more, where it's like, well, I mean, it's over already if it's not good.
Well, it's almost weird, right? Because like it's kind of self-aggrandizing in that way, because it's now going to be the only Avengers movie that doesn't have a comic title. Where you have just Avengers, Age of Ultron, which I know isn't an Avengers thing, but none of the Avengers subtitles after that actually are. Then you have Infinity War, Endgame, Kang Dynasty, and Secret Wars. Like everything else is a comic title they took from something.
Yeah.
Like that's kind of weird.
Well, and one of the weirdest ones with that is Age of Ultron,
Yeah.
because that wasn't a comic thing until that movie was announced, and then it became
It's
one.
like retroactive.
It's retroactive, yeah. And that was the first comic event where I went, oh, we're starting to make these things to tell you what's coming more than we're trying to tell cool stories. Because I can't remember exactly what now, it's been too long, but there were aspects of Age of Ultron that kind of gave away things they ended up doing in that movie.
Oh, interesting. I've never read that event, so
I
don't know.
forget what now, it's been too long. But I'm going back to points I made 7 years ago.
Yeah. That is one of those just kind of in titles at that point, though. Like it's like, what should we put in front of Ultron? Rise of, Age of, I don't know, something. Just slap something in there.
Okay, we've got some more super chats to
Yeah.
kick out here, and then I am kind of burning to know some of Austin's predictions, because I know he's got ideas and thoughts. Both ideas and thoughts. Burn in.
Maybe one. I don't know if I have both.
1999 super chat from Burned In. Thank you so very much for
That's
the
awesome.
support. Really appreciate you. He says, I forgave a lot of Phase 4's problems and enjoyed most of it. No Way Home and Multiverse of Madness being the standouts for me. However, Quantum kind of put every nail in the coffin at once and killed my MCU hype going forward. Please get better, Marvel. Now, the question is, because I'm hearing a lot of that right now. So let's break this down for a second. And partly because this is a $20 super chat, so I want to spend some time on it. Austin, what are the main reasons that you think, having not seen that movie, of course, because you haven't been yet, but what do you think is like the main reason that people are reacting that way, where they're saying, because like it's an Ant-Man movie, they go to an Ant-Man movie and they go, this wasn't great, I don't know if I even care about the franchise anymore.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think with that specifically, it's easy to have that when the big thing right now is Kang, and that's their kind of big like showcase of Kang. But I think it's interesting, right? Because you look at each phase and you have your kind of first project that is like the big like first thing of the phase, and that kind of sets the tone, right? Where the phase 1 you got Iron Man, phase 2 you got Iron Man 3, phase 3 is Civil War. So all movies, I know Iron Man 3 is more controversial, but like I feel like all pretty solid starts.
Yeah.
Phase 4 has, if you want to go to TV show, it's WandaVision, and with the movie, it's Black Widow. So like even just between those two, there's a big drop in scale, and then we're starting phase 5 with Ant-Man. After phase 4 wasn't so good, so you go, okay, here we're starting phase 5, here we go. It's Ant-Man and people aren't really liking it. and they think MODOK sucks and he doesn't look very good, and people aren't too thrilled with Kang. Or I think people like Kang the most out of that, but I also see a lot of people going, okay, but I don't really get why he's the main villain of this phase.
Yeah, they're not stoked for a movie with his name in the title. And he's
Mhm.
clearly supposed to be the new Thanos, and that seems to have maybe already crashed and burned. Like, I don't know if they turn that around. Like they might, with the right advertising and commercials that perk people up and surprise them with, like, oh, okay, this is maybe going to be less hokey overall, and Kang seems like more of a threat, and maybe this Kang doesn't look like he could get beaten by Ant-Man. So
Well, and
like
I
maybe they
feel
can perk
like,
people up, but I don't know if the damage isn't already done in. There's not going to be any comparison for people between Thanos and Kang.
yeah, I feel like,
They're trying to
I,
manufacture that very clearly.
yeah, and I've had it from the start. Like, I think Kang should just be a red herring. I don't think he should be the main villain of Secret Wars, because Secret Wars, from the original to the Hickman version, when you boil it down, it's a Doctor Doom story.
Yeah,
It should
yeah.
be a Doctor Doom movie. Like,
Well,
it shouldn't be
and
a
maybe it
Kang
will
thing.
be because
And maybe, but
there are some stories I think that kind of do this with Kang, where like he's important and a big deal, but there's like something else going on.
yeah, and I think it would be cool if we got something like that where you're going, okay, here's our next big Thanos. Psych, it's Doctor Doom. You know what I mean? Like, it would be interesting. It would be something
And
different.
a lot of people, a lot of air quote normies aren't going to call that.
Yeah,
And that
exactly.
would be
And
really, really fun for people not in the know.
yeah, when you have Doctor Doom who does not have a good history on film, and hypothetically we make a good Doctor Doom with this, who knows? Uh, it would look a lot cooler, right?
Yeah. And it would be really cool to introduce him there.
Hmm.
Like what if you did a Fantastic Four movie and there was no hide or hair of Doom? And then
Yeah,
he shows up for the first time in a big event movie like that when you're expecting Kang to be behind everything. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't know that they'll do that, but I can see why you're saying maybe that's what they should do.
or it could even be, Doom is
And
just
nothing
kind
against
of.
people that love Kang, because I'm not saying that he's not a cool enough villain to be a big deal. I'm just saying I think they might have already kind of screwed the pooch on that.
I mean, we've had him in two projects so far, and we've seen him get killed by, Ant-Man and Wasp and female Loki. Like, it's hard
Yeah.
for me to look at that and go, he can fight Thor or the Hulk. You know what I
Well, and I
mean?
don't mean to be too superficial about it. I think the idea on the creative side is supposed to be, yeah, but don't you get it? There's a bunch of them. So who cares if some of them can get beaten by smaller ones? But the problem is,
Yeah.
was Ant-Man introducing the idea of Kang or the character of Kang? I
Yeah,
can't
and
I
I
can't
don't
answer
know.
that. I don't really know.
Well, I feel like what they should have done is that, you have like Kang, here and there, we see a little bit of him. And then in Kang Dynasty, he finally shows up. And it's this big thing where the Avengers barely manage to win, but at the end of the day they beat him and they kill Kang, and they all barely
Or
survive.
all the Kangs, because it's going to be a bunch of Kangs.
No, 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 no. One Kang, and they beat him, and they go, "Oh man, that's one of the hardest things we've ever done. We beat this guy." Movie's over, credits, end credits. The Council of Kangs, and you go, "Oh my god, there's like a ton of them."
Oh, you're saying this is what they should have done instead
This
of
is what
what
they should
Ant-Man
have
did.
done.
Sorry, I got you.
Because it would have been a major, like, oh my god moment, for people in the theater, right?
Yeah, but it's not when Ant-Man beats him.
Exactly, because you go, oh, there's an army of this guy that got beaten up by ants. Okay.
Well, and when his whole motivation is I'm basically a genie in a lamp. Like I'm stuck in this place I can't get out of. And he never gets out, and then he gets beaten inside that the quantum realm by Ant-Man.
Mhm.
And
Yeah,
so I guess the
exactly.
scary thing is supposed to be maybe he was the only person, as he claims, that can defeat that whole council, but I'm not buying that because he got taken out as easily as he did.
Yeah, he's not really a threat, you
No.
know.
And
And
he's played interestingly.
mhm. And I think it's interesting because they made a big deal with Infinity War, that, and I don't know if you like how much you remember, but the big thing that they kept saying was, in the first 10 minutes, you will understand why Thanos is the big bad. And it opens up with him, taking out the Asgardians and beating up the Hulk. And like, it's
And
very,
kills Loki.
yeah, and he kills Heimdall,
Yeah.
He doesn't show up and he gets beat up
No resurrections.
by Moon Knight. Like,
yeah.
And it's really interesting to compare how they're handling both main bad guys they have.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm gonna be really curious to see how they advertise, how they try to get people to go see Kang Dynasty, because I feel like there's probably a lot of scrambling going on behind the scenes right now, where they're going, okay, we have this huge drop off. We've never seen that before. I wonder if there's been we've gotten too big for our britches conversation. We need to kind of go back to the drawing board a little bit, go back to brass tacks. And when you listen to the way Feige's been talking lately, he's simultaneously trying to keep up the illusion or the sense of confidence. And, I want to, and he said this before the box office with Ant-Man, but
well, that's the big thing, is that it was all before Ant-Man.
I want this to go on for 80 years and all of that. But even before Ant-Man, I think they'd already made the decision to slow down on TV shows.
Yeah, because I think so there was talk about that early on when Iger took back over Disney, that Iger was looking over everything and going, okay, everything's in the toilet since I left. Like, we need to really tighten things up again.
Yeah.
And then I'm guessing that wasn't a rumor, because now we're seeing that with the TV side.
And so how much of that was Feige and those guys sobering up, and how much of it was Iger, who is maybe a better businessman than they are, going, this isn't smart the way you guys are handling this?
Well, and I don't know how much you looked at the TV stuff, but one of the things Feige said was that they want to move away from the overall story thing that they've been doing, where it's just a long movie. And he flat out said the word episodic moving forward, which makes me excited, because I'd rather see that with superhero television. So who knows? Maybe they'll fix that. I'm not sure.
That's gonna be interesting. That makes you want, because I hadn't heard that. Here's the thing. I really liked the idea of the miniseries until they started making them.
Yeah.
I want to be able to do 3, 4, 6 hour movies that are, maybe broken up by episode, so that you can tell more story and do more complex stuff that you just can't get done in 2.5 hours. But also, maybe like comics, they can have sometimes a beginning, middle, and end unto themselves also. And that's not, it still should kind of be television. And WandaVision, that's why I perked up with that show right away, because it was doing that initially. Mm-hmm. It really got that. And then you get to, and Moon Knight is decent at that in at least a couple of its episodes.
Well, I think going back to Daredevil, season 2 tries to be more out there, and then people didn't like it as much, so we immediately went away from that.
Yeah.
But I really liked that there was kind of little arcs in it. And there's an overall story, but okay, these first few episodes are Punisher versus Daredevil. Then you get a little bit with the Hand, and then you have the trial of Frank Castle.
Well, it felt like a comics run.
Exactly.
And it didn't feel like just an arc of a comics run. It felt like a run.
Exactly, and that's the benefit you have from TV, that we can do some of that stuff. And with Daredevil specifically, Born Again's going to have 18 episodes. I'm really hoping that's not all just one story. It would be really cool if we could have, an episode where, insert Daredevil villain robs a bank, and he's like, oh, I'm going to go deal with this. I'm in the middle of a trial. What do I do?
My worry with that is that the lesson they learned from Netflix Daredevil is the same lesson that Iron Fist learned from Netflix Daredevil, which is it's all about slow pacing and decompression.
Well, that was just all of Netflix, because I think that starts with Luke Cage, and then it
does. But when you look at the first season of Daredevil, even though it's paced really well, it's easy to be superficial and look at a thing that you don't understand and people liking it and go, oh, this is working because it's slow.
Yeah, and slow is not a style.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Daredevil is not like super fast paced in getting a ton done every episode. It takes its time. It's like, it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's deliberate in the same way Breaking Bad was.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, no, absolutely.
We're doing this a lot. Where we're looking at kind of the classic binge watch shows now after we've been doing this for so many years and going, what worked about House of Cards and Breaking Bad, these kinds of. I realized Breaking Bad wasn't originally made for streaming, but that's why it was successful. Ultimately, is people binged it like a streaming show. The reason these things were successful is because they were slow as molasses and made you, like a whole season could be a month and a half.
Mm-hmm.
But like the story's gotta warrant that. It can't feel like 60 minutes of television stretched out to 18 episodes of television. And that's my fear with Daredevil, is that that's what that'll be. And I really hope not, obviously. Because I heard 18 and I simultaneously went, that's great, and oh no.
Yeah, it's like, that's great if it's what I want it to be. Absolutely. And I think one of the things, and Daredevil won't have this, but just the shows in general, and this isn't a Marvel thing, this is Disney Plus in general.
Yeah.
We need to move away from the introduce the villain as the stinger of the second last episode thing.
Yeah,
that
we do.
So many of these shows do. You have an entire show, like, flesh your stuff out.
And
like,
you're right.
Flesh out the relationships.
You're right. It's not just Marvel. Star Wars is doing that too.
Most of the Star Wars shows have it, yeah. Because it starts with Mandalorian. Which
How have they already landed on a serialized TV formula when they've only been doing these shows for like a year and a half?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that crazy?
It's crazy.
Okay, so we've got more super chats. I promise I'll get to those in a second. I have one major question I have to ask you, Austin, that I think is really important for this whole conversation, which is how bad of a job, because we might be in different places with this, how bad of a job do you think, or that's leading, that's a loaded gun question. Let me say this. Do you think look, he's making Guardians, but he's not the main guy, okay? So it's not a pun every time I say it when I'm not even talking about DC right now. Do you think Marvel has poorly handled how clear it is how much of everything you're supposed to watch right now? What I mean is, have they made it clear whether or not you're supposed to be able to cherry pick what you want to see, or does it still feel like the MCU is one big story? Because I think people have been confused about this with Phase 4, with just the sheer number of things that they've put out and how saturated it's been. And I think one of the reasons they've lost people is because they maybe mistakenly think they're supposed to watch everything, and too much of it they're not interested in.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So with Phase 4, I think one of the ideas they had was to go back to the Phase 1 thing, except we have more stuff coming out, of course, where you're just kind of introducing things. It's a lot of setup before it's payoffs, and maybe that's weird after Phase 3, which is a lot of payoff stuff.
But they could have gotten away with it better if they'd taken 3 years off.
And
because then you would expect that, right?
Yeah, and I mean, I think a lot of it just comes down to quality. Like, the quality wasn't there, so it wasn't great, but like it was nice that they were splitting up more. And it's like, okay, Miss Marvel has nothing to do with Moon Knight, which has nothing to do with Thor, which has nothing to do with Spider-Man. Like everything's so separate, which is a big complaint I heard from people with Phase 4, that it doesn't feel like they have a goal. And for me, it was like, okay, this is what I've always wanted, is just to make it feel more like comics, where everything's kind of just in its own little corner, and this character's doing that character's doing this, and it's just the quality wasn't there.
But I think the reason people felt that, and you're right, the quality is the biggest problem, but I think the reason that people felt that way was because they were conditioned for 11 years to watch everything.
Yeah.
And so they still think they're supposed to be doing it. And the problem is, this is a difficult catch-22 because they've been conditioned that way, and they want to watch everything, right? So if it's oversaturated, there's too much of it, they watch a few things, they go, I'm not real into this, and I can't tell how it all connects, and I can't tell if I need to look at everything, so I'm kind of just bored now, and I'm sort of out, because maybe ultimately it will turn out I need all these things, but it's a huge commitment, and I'm not into it. If they'd been able to early on somehow get the memo out where we're doing it differently now. Watch the things you're interested in and curious about, and don't worry, whatever you look at moving forward, you're not going to have any problem with if you didn't see this other thing. But what I think is also confusing people is, like you said, yeah, technically Moon Knight doesn't have anything to do with Miss Marvel, doesn't have anything to do with WandaVision, but then you go see a movie that's got an after-credit scene that's tied to some TV show you didn't watch. And you go, oh, okay, I was supposed to be watching everything, and I didn't because I'm bored. And then that makes people lose interest.
The first time we've done that is Ant-Man, right? Where we've done the post-credit scene that ties to a show.
So yeah, I said post-credit is just the most recent example, but they've also done it with characters that are introduced either in a TV show and show up in a movie, or are introduced in a movie to later be in a TV show. We've done both of those things now.
Yeah, so I think one of their goals was to go, okay, like we have this movie and we have this show, and these two things will be kind of connected. Like WandaVision is kind of connected to Doctor Strange,
and also to the Marvels.
To the Marvel. Oh, because you introduced her, but I mean like more so like, yeah, I guess technically, yeah. Because I was gonna say Miss Marvel. With
they give her a lot to do that's very connected to Captain Marvel's whole backstory.
Yeah, we give her powers, which I didn't think of.
Yeah.
But no, that's fair too. I was thinking Miss Marvel with the Marvels, because that's more so setting up that movie.
Yeah, and that too, but the Rambo thing is there. I mean,
no, and that's true.
I was watching that with my wife. She has no interest in Captain Marvel. She refuses to watch that movie, and she was, and I had to explain to her a couple of things in that show, because it kind of expects that you've seen that. Mm-hmm. Or at least it seemed like it when we were watching. I've seen that one time. I don't know. Or I guess I watched it a second time when we reviewed it. And I haven't kept reviewing all these things because I have not stayed interested, and neither have a lot of other people.
Yeah, I think we only reviewed the first two shows. Because we didn't do Loki. So
no, I've done how we felt about on the first episode of... I was going to say a couple other things. Maybe I haven't. I haven't done Moon Knight at all. I haven't done Miss Marvel at all. I haven't even watched... She-Hulk. What else is it? I haven't done anything on Hawkeye, and I liked that show.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned Hawkeye earlier. Yes, that's the one that's most cohesive and has a decent standard of quality all the way through. And still, the last episode is something of a misstep, but it still doesn't kill the whole thing.
The last episode, the big thing with that is less on Hawkeye.
It's just Kingpin.
And more... Oh my god, like I'm so worried about how they're gonna handle the Daredevil stuff, because Kingpin sucks.
Yeah, he's rough.
And yeah, it's different creators and they're going for a different tone, but it is concerning. And then we got it with Daredevil and She-Hulk.
Yeah, and like I said, I haven't looked at that yet, and I'm kind of afraid to. But and what bugs me is, and no disrespect to anybody, because I get like seeing something you love finally come back and it's a big deal, but a good performance with a lackluster or crappy script shouldn't be enough to excite you.
Yeah.
That bugs me, where people will go, well, I mean, what's his name? Plays Daredevil.
Charlie Cox, who's always great.
Oh, Charlie Cox is great, and same thing with D'Onofrio, like with Kingpin and Hawkeye.
Both just stepped immediately back into those roles. It's just that the writing is holding them back.
Yeah, and that is so awkward to me. If they were hamming it up and just playing it the way it is on the page, it would almost be better to me because it fits the material more. But that's not saying I actually want to see that because, again, Arrowverse, you got that a lot with Legends of Tomorrow, where those actors get those scripts and they go, oh, we're not making the same thing anymore. I guess now it's like Schumacher on the set of Batman and Robin. Remember, everyone, it's a cartoon!
Well, and it was always going to be hard with Kingpin, I think, because Kingpin in the Daredevil show is the best Kingpin's ever been.
Yeah.
I think, like, even better than he is in the comics.
Yeah.
So we're going a little bit more into comic booky stuff with him, and I'm going, but where, it's not as good. And like,
but how awkward is it to see him play it with the same motivations, but the character on the page clearly isn't that?
Mm-hmm. Well, and the big thing with that is that we go back to like Ramita Spider-Man Kingpin, where he's like just hanging out in public, like fist fighting superheroes, and it's like, guys, like,
how are you even getting away with that with your background?
You don't get the appeal of Kingpin if this is what you're doing.
Like, but also, I don't even know how he's able to do that, which raises continuity questions and all of that, which I won't get into. But
well, yeah, because I don't think they'll be clear on any of that. It'll be very muddy.
Yeah, I think I think it'll be they'll be vague about that forever. Mm-hmm. Robert Wild, $5 super chat.
Daredevil's costume though.
Yeah. Robert Wild put in a $5 super chat. I'm only interested in seeing characters like Iron Man recast if it's a complete reboot set outside the MCU. You're not going to get your wish on that. So
I have a thing with Iron Man, which is I think
at least anytime soon. I don't think.
I think they're going to do the Captain America thing where they're just going to make Don Cheadle Iron Man, and they'll change the title of Armor Wars to Iron Man Armor Wars. And my theory for a while has been that the Armor Wars TV show was to Iron Man what Falcon and the Winter Soldier was to Cap, where it's take this character that's kind of the sidekicky character and make them the main one now, and have the entire TV show be about that, and then make the movie that is them as the hero. And then I think they had issues getting that show together, and Don Cheadle went, can I just have the movie? Like, do I really need a TV show that's entirely based around just me becoming Iron Man?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the way that's going to go. Because I don't think there's any way that movie's just called Armor Wars.
I'll be surprised. We've never done that with anything. And I know you and I have argued about this forever, but like, I think Civil War is the first one they should have done that with. And they didn't. They called the Captain America Civil War, and it would be very strange if that was just Armor Wars. You're right. They probably just hung on to that logo because they already made that for a TV show.
Yeah.
I didn't have that thought.
Maybe at Comic-Con they'll be like Iron Man, Armor Wars.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But to Robert's hopes and dreams, I've said for a long time that the best thing that could come out of Multiverse is multiple continuities for
it's the Elseworld thing
for different people that like different things. And I will be really surprised if they actually take advantage of that and if it's not a big missed opportunity.
Yeah.
That's what I think they should be doing. Honestly, that's what I think the TV show should have been in the first place, maybe. I'm having this thought in the moment right now, so I might change my mind here in 3 seconds. But it occurs to me that the TV side would be a place so you don't confuse people to go, here are TV movies, here are miniseries that are set in some of these other universes that we've set up in this big multiverse saga in the movies. And you can go see these other characters that we maybe introduce as side characters from other dimensions in these TV shows. Now, having said that, I also like the idea of being able to do more complex, more serialized stories in the main, what they're now calling 616, continuity. Mm-hmm. So I guess I'm not fully wanting that, but from an advertising perspective or a marketing perspective, I could see that, being what you did with it.
Well, and with Iron Man specifically, because I'm a very jaded Iron Man fan right now, because I like what they did with the Downey stuff well enough. There's a billion missed opportunities, but I think overall they handled it fine.
Yeah.
But now we're at a place where we go, okay, they haven't really adapted anything Iron Man, but we're doing it now, so we're gonna, not gonna get. We got the Mandarin without Iron Man. We're doing Armor Wars without Iron Man. We're starting to adapt a lot of this big Iron Man stuff without that character.
Yeah, I know that drives you crazy.
And yeah, and it drives me crazy. And you even get things like in the first episode of She-Hulk, there's a part where they're hanging out at Bruce Banner's bar that he has in like the Caribbean. And Bruce Banner's like, oh, me and Tony, we built this together. Well, technically, I built it. He was just off on the side drinking all day. And I'm like, you don't get to do that. You don't get to pretend like there was any of the alcoholism stuff to Iron Man, because there wasn't. You know what I mean? And
he had a scene in Iron Man 2. That was about it.
Yeah, it's like, okay, can I just have my offshoot Iron Man movie series that maybe is allowed to do Iron Man stuff, please?
Yeah.
And
so like, what do you want? Like, would you like to see them do a like alternate continuity where they recast and then just do Iron Man stories?
So I think we can keep the MCU as it is. That's fine if we're not fully rebooting. And then just maybe like, hey, this creator wants to make an Iron Man series. Just let him make it. And then that can exist outside of that. That can be its own thing. And it doesn't have to connect to anything else. It can just be like, this is what this person wants to make.
Yeah.
And then, you know what I mean? We can just do things like that and like do the Elseworld.
It would be nice if they were allowed to do what in DC we would call Elseworlds as opposed to What If.
Mm-hmm.
And
absolutely,
given that they've got the big multiverse gimmick, I just don't know if you'll see that. They've had What If, which gives them the excuse to do like animated episodes where you have different versions of characters. I don't know if you'll see them do just like a straight up out of continuity, like, Batman White Knight sort of thing, or like an Ultimate Spider-Man sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely.
I wish they would. I'm totally with you.
And it's just leaving money on the table.
Well, and maybe with animation they are, because apparently freshman year isn't supposed to be in the same continuity. So we've got that to look forward to.
That probably has to do with Sony shenanigans, right? Like there's probably weird rights issues there.
Okay, but if that works out, there's nothing stopping them from doing it on purpose.
Yeah, well, and that's the other thing. Like, you're owned by Disney. Can we not get some good animated shows? And I know I've said this to you before, can we not just make like animated movies for Disney Plus, like the same way that DC does on straight to DVD?
Yeah, which they've been doing since 2007.
Yeah,
and they haven't always been great, but Marvel's been off and on with it. They don't have a studio for it anymore.
Yeah, and open it up. That's Disney Plus content for you. You can open a little animation studio that does it.
Boy, that's such a good point. And you could have a continuity or not. I mean, either way. If the continuity's good, that's cool with me. But if it's not, or if you just want to do, separate movies like they used to when they did, and they, some of them were kind of crappy. I get that. But like, they did the Doctor Strange one, and they did Invincible Iron Man, which everybody hated, and
and like Ultimate Avengers, stuff like that.
Hulk versus. Mm-hmm. The Planet Hulk, like they were doing the DC thing where they would just straight up adapt.
No, how crazy is
events and stories
that Marvel is owned by Disney and has no good animation.
What a great point.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and we got Big Hero 6, which was good.
Yeah,
but why couldn't they make more stuff like that?
Yeah,
I don't mean it all has to be like 3D and look like Pixar and that sort of thing, but.
No, but I feel like that's like Disney Plus is a good place for that, I think.
But like that was neat because they went to an obscure thing that most people didn't even know was originally a Marvel property.
And something that the MCU would probably never have touched.
Yeah, and they just adapted something random, and it was pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, the movie's all right. Like,
not everybody cares about that. And I gave it a glowing review when I finally looked at it on Rewind because I was so surprised by how much interesting writing I was finding in that. It's not even a thing I've been back to since then. Like, you think based on that review, it's my new favorite thing. But, like, just writing about it, I loved it. And I was like, I don't really need to sit down and watch this. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a shrug. That's my review. But yeah, like there's so much you can do, and we don't really have any good Marvel animated series anymore. We haven't in a long time, but there's like none happening right now that aren't for like 3-year-olds. Or
Yeah,
there's that Spider-Man show
and
still
they're doing
on.
the Spider-Man show, and they're bringing back '90s X-Men,
Mhm.
but there's been all these rumors that that's somehow tied to MCU.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And what's concerning about that is that they're very coy about it, and it has the Marvel Studios logo over that X-Men '97 logo.
Which I
So
think has people nervous that about how exactly they're going to handle X-Men when they finally bring it live action into the MCU. That like somehow it's tied to that.
well, I really hope that the
But then
MCU
I have mixed
continues.
emotions about that because what I would do would be essentially go back to the 90s team because that was when it was at its most popular and we haven't really done that with movies.
Mhm.
And like it doesn't have to be exactly that tonally and with costumes and all of that, but I don't think that's a bad place to start. Like if you
Yeah, I agree.
if you wanted to launch right out with it's Wolverine and Jean Grey and Rogue and
Yeah, and
Cyclops and all those
Gambit
guys,
and
Gambit, yeah. I realize everybody I've mentioned is in the first X-Men movie, but like Gambit.
I know I had to throw out Gambit for you because exactly.
But I mean, have them established already, and Rogue's like not a blend of Rogue and Kitty Pryde, and
Well, now we can do the or I guess Miss Marvel at the time, Rogue thing, where she has those powers.
yeah.
You know, that'd be cool.
One of the weirdest ironies now in MCU and just in superhero movie history in general is we spent several years trying to make everybody forget about the X-Men and replace them with the Inhumans. And then when we finally adapt Miss Marvel, she's not an Inhuman anymore. It's amazing.
Well, it's even funnier because they made her a mutant.
And they made her a mutant. Isn't that nuts?
Yeah, so I have two things off of that. A, it's also funny because by the time they bought Fox, that Avengers game came out, which is all about Inhumans because it was a relic of that.
Yeah.
And
And it
then
didn't sell, and now they've dropped the online and everything.
yeah, and everything in that game is going to be free and next month, and probably in like a few weeks.
Oh, I thought they were just dropping the servers where you couldn't even play it.
No, you can still play it, but like you're not unlocking anything. Like all of it's free, like all the cosmetics, all that stuff.
Oh, maybe I'll play it now.
Yeah, yes, you can just jump in and be cool.
Yay, no paywalls.
Yeah, I mean, part of their stupidity with that is their release strategy for other characters didn't help.
It'll be. I know we're getting off the mark here, but it'll be interesting now after that failure to see what happens with Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League. But the more we're hearing about that, have you heard that game is going to require an internet connection all the time, even when you're playing just the one player campaign? Like, what are we doing?
So I'm a colossal simp, and I'm like, I love the Suicide Squad, and I just want a good Suicide Squad game, so I know I'm gonna play it. But at the same time, I'm so disappointed. Like it
I'm
does
not buying
look
that
good.
now. Certainly not day one.
Yeah.
Like
And
that would have to be a system seller for me. I don't even have a PS5 or an Xbox
Yeah.
Series system yet.
the big thing that they have to do, as opposed to Avengers, is just be smart with whatever they do after the fact too. Like one of the biggest issues I think with Avengers is that people didn't like it right away, and then they went, okay, well, don't worry, we're gonna do all this extra story stuff. We're gonna add all these new characters, and then they added Kate Bishop, Clint Barton, so basically reskins of the same character. Female Thor, so basically a reskin of Thor. Winter Soldier, so basically a reskin of Black Widow. Spider-Man, who is only on PS4.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
And Black Panther, who's basically the only original character in that game. And then I'm sure he's probably takes elements from Captain America, but it's closer to being its own thing. And it's like, how did we do that? How did we release 2 Hawkeyes in a row?
That's crazy. Well, anyway, we'll get back to the MCU speculation.
Oh yeah, so my other thing.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. I really need the MCU to continue just playing the '90s X-Men theme every time the word mutant is uttered.
I hate it.
It's so
They need to
stupid.
stop doing that. And it's got me worried because if they're doing that because they really are leading up to some kind of incontinuity thing, that's gonna blow up in their face when nobody likes that show.
Mhm.
I say when, I should say if, but like I don't trust bringing back a show decades later like that. Like I hope it's good. Don't get me wrong, I love '90s X-Men, but there's no reason to trust it. People didn't like Young Justice when it came back.
One, my big thing is how fast are we gonna find out that they're bringing back '90s Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Maybe they won't, but
Okay,
I'm
but
pretty
I
sure that's
want
coming.
that because it would be so funny to see what's his face produce that again, like show
I
run
don't
that
know if they
again.
would bring Semper back though. I think they would just make their own thing.
They're bringing back everybody for that X-Men show though.
Oh, are they? I just knew they were bringing back the cast. I didn't know if they were bringing
No,
back
it's the
people.
showrunners. It's
Oh,
that
okay.
it's that team coming back. I just don't
Oh,
know. I think I'm pretty sure. See, now you got me second guessing it. I'm pretty sure it's them
yeah. Okay. Well, maybe then.
because
That's
I'm not sure if some of that cast would come back without them.
hmm Yeah, I don't know. Okay, so maybe they'd get Semper back for Spider-Man.
I think they would, and that
Semper
would
just
be
did that Green Lantern movie.
you know we want that. And I've heard that Green Lantern movie's not very good.
No,
But I
I've
haven't watched it.
heard that too.
We're super behind on that. Austin and I have been talking about binging those and just doing like a catch-all video for the last several DC direct animated movies, but we haven't had a chance to get to that yet.
If we do, we need to hurry because I think Legion just came out, so like they're actively adding up.
And I haven't seen Super Sons yet. We're 5 or 6 down, I think. Anyway,
It's pretty rough.
let's get back to the MCU speculation, and actually this won't even be that, but I have to read the super chat. Another $20 super chat from Burn In. Really appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for all the monetary assistance tonight. He says, and Cap, with respect, are you worried for your channel due to your panel of guests not being very interested in seeing MCU these days?
I was really hoping he was going to say, due to your panel of guests not being very interesting.
He says, Dan and DJ seem particularly checked out, and the rest of you don't really enjoy these.
I mean, that's a question for you. That's not a question for me. So,
No, I'm not worried about the channel. I have to say, it does sometimes make me feel bad that we don't have more positive things to say because I wish the material was better.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's more fun for everybody involved, us and the viewers, if we're reviewing more good things than not so good things. But all we can do is call it like we see it. And
Yeah.
I'm certainly not going to pretend to, feign excitement or pretend I'm liking something more than I am just so that we can have positive vibes on the channel. If we think it sucks, man, and we can stay positive in saying, we hope for the best, we hope better things come out, and we can stay positive in at some point just not reviewing everything because we don't want to just be negative all the time. I have done that. I've been called out some for not sticking to my guns and reviewing everything, even if I have nothing but negative things to say, but that's no fun for me, and there's plenty of other things we could be talking about, is the other thing. So, like, look, if we get to a place, and I really mean this, if we get to a place where everything coming out for superhero with movies and TV is god-awful and none of us are liking any of it, or let me just say, I'm not liking any of it, I can take this to a full-on retro channel. We can just stop talking about any of it. We can just be, and yes, I'll be leaving some money on the table, and the view counts won't be what they were with some things, but like, there's still, we have a dedicated base here that's super cool and likes us, and I can find stuff that they'll want to listen to us talk about, even if I have to go backwards. And I've always been more of a retro channel than a new channel anyway. So like, we do this stuff and I'm interested in it, but if like when we used to review everything Arrowverse, when that went super downhill, I got to a place where I just went, I mean, none of us are having any fun.
I mean, we did that with the Disney Plus shows.
Yeah. We just quit
yeah.
talking about them all the time. And if that, like, it would it would suck if that had to happen with the MCU, but the idea, and I'm saying this with respect to you, Burned, but the idea that the channel, and I don't think this is what you're saying, but I just want to quelch this if this is the thought, or at least in my opinion, this is not the case. If the idea is the MCU is the driving force of the channel, I don't buy into that. I think we could survive even not continuing to talk about MCU moving forward. We'll find stuff to talk about.
Yeah, and I know for me personally, like, yeah, I'm not so down with the MCU right now, and I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, Guardians 3 is kind of it for me, and then, if people really like some of the stuff moving forward, like FF and whatnot, like, yeah, I'll go take a look at them because I like Marvel, and that's, my thing.
You'll just cherry pick at that point, yeah.
But I don't remember a time where I've been more excited about superhero movies because I'm really excited for the DCU stuff. I'm really excited about the Batman stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm really excited about the new Hellboy movie once I looked into it and kind of learned more about it. Like, there's
Yeah.
so much right now where I'm like...
I hope that comes up on the Captain Logan show tomorrow night because I haven't gotten to revisit that yet after we learned more.
Yeah,
that
like,
Mignola is
so much
involved
right
and
now.
co-writing it, or is he straight up writing it?
He's co-writing it with another Dark Horse writer, like just another comic book writer. It's going to be a 1950s period piece that's just Hellboy in a small village.
Yeah, it sounds like what it always should have been.
It sounds awesome, yeah. Like, there's just so much right now where I'm like, oh, I'm getting a lot of the stuff I've always wanted. Like, I don't remember a time where I've been this excited for comic book stuff. Even though, like, yeah, the MCU, I think, is falling in on itself. Like, I'm really excited about a lot of the modern superhero movies prospects.
Yeah, and I'm not as over the moon as I want to be with some of the announcements, but I'm certainly optimistic because I think they've got the right guy at the helm. So, I mean, the stuff he wants to make is not some of it the stuff I care about, but kind of the point is to make different, strokes for different folks. And there's definitely stuff there that I mean, like, after I read that Supergirl book, I'm very excited about that. And I said before any of that happened, Gunn should make Superman, and he is. So, like, I'm getting that.
Yeah, and I don't know anything about the Authority, but I'm excited for them to make me a fan of that material if it's good. Like,
yeah, that's a good point.
Here we go, and I'm excited for a Swamp Thing movie. Batman's not exactly what I want, but I have the Batman, so
yeah,
it's sprinkles on top. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, yeah, this other Batman movie might be cool too, even if it's not exactly what I want from Batman, because I already have that somewhere else.
And the nice thing is, if any of this is, leaps and bounds above what DC has been doing the last several years, like you and I are kind of hoping and expecting maybe it will be, we could be setting our sights too high. I don't know, but it's going to create competition, and this can only be good for MCU because they're gonna force to up their writing game or they're gonna lag behind.
Yeah, so I think when I look at it, I look at, say, the Phase 4 announcements. When they announced Phase 4, the big feeling I had was like tiredness, where it was like, okay, here's all these products that are, in this lineup.
And it feels like content.
And it feels like content. When James Gunn talked about each movie, I went, oh, I think each one of those movies could be really great. Just hearing him talk about them individually. Well, I never really had that with the Marvel Phase 4 stuff. And even, honestly, going back to, like, Phase 3, like, it was just kind of a lot of, here's logos, like, we're making a Black Panther movie. Okay, like, Black Panther's cool, I wonder what that'll be. Doctor Strange is cool, I wonder what that'll be.
But also inevitable things. Here's all stuff you were going to make at some point.
Exactly, yeah. And I think I would like to see Marvel move towards more of that style where you just have, and it doesn't have to be Kevin Feige. I know he's talked about, like, not really liking, that kind of a thing. Like, he's not a performer. But, it would be cool if they had somebody that could get up and be like, this is the kind of stuff we're interested about with Black Panther or Doctor Strange or whatever. And, like, this is what's going to go into the movie that we're making. Just something to go like, oh, okay, these guys really care about this stuff, and it makes me excited because they're excited about it, as opposed to just, hey, we're making Shang-Chi. Nobody here cares about Shang-Chi, and we're not going to make it look like the comics. And
But
then you watch it, and it's like...
it's another character we have that maybe we can do something with that's different than some other things. But real quick, getting back to that super chat, I realized that at least in the movie side, we have continued to review every superhero movie that comes out. There's a lot of them now. They're still few enough, and they're few enough far between that I have felt so far like it's not hard to go to those and talk about them.
Just one every few months.
You know, and there continues to be interest in that, and you hope that you don't give a horribly negative review to every one of them, but that's a little bit different than I have to binge this TV show, and then sit there and talk about it, or every week I'm going to watch an episode of the show that comes out, and it sucks and I don't like it, and just over and over again I'm saying the same things because it all goes back to the same root problems. And that was the issue that I was having when we were doing Primetime Crisis, and I was trying to cover everything. It gets to just kind of get to your brain after a while. So anyway, but that's my answer to that. No, I'm not concerned about the channel with it. Like I said, it's kind of sad. Like I don't like it.
Yeah, nobody likes to be negative. Oh, I mean, some people do, but we don't like to be negative about things. Like, I
don't want it to not be good. Sometimes when things are funny bad, it can be fun to eviscerate them. Yeah. Like when we got some flack.
That's not disliking it, at least for me. Like
yeah, back in the old 7 days, we got flack for just ripping BVS to shreds and having a good time with it. But what else were we supposed to do? Like, none of us liked that movie, and it was baffling and bizarre, and other words that start with the letter B that mean the same thing. And it was, and we had a good time, and we were able to find some joy in it. Mm-hmm. It didn't mean we wanted it to keep happening that way, because that was, the second movie starting a big new DC universe, and we're like, oh no, this is where we're at. So we had the kind of catharsis fun we could have because we were all just kind of reeling from it. Mm-hmm. What else do you do?
Yeah, exactly.
Have a funeral? I mean, I guess Superman just died, so
funeral
sure.
For a film.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. I'm going to steal that from you and make that a series title. That's a really good title.
Yeah, thank you.
Funeral for a film. But then I'd be just being negative every time in a video series.
You don't have to be. It could be, remembering and celebrating life.
It could be all about... I had this thought the other day. It would be fun to do a series about movies that didn't perform at the box office, and the primary goal of it is to just determine why it didn't do better. Like, they could be good movies and bad movies.
Yeah, it'd be a fun series.
And you might have, like, a little bit of review in it, but the main point of it would just be to try to... Like, they wouldn't even be long, probably, You just have a 15-minute, 20-minute conversation. How come this movie wasn't better received?
Yeah, you could do it.
Be almost a history video. You see what else came out around it, if it was like eclipsed by other things at the box office.
And then you end with, did this movie deserve better?
Yeah.
And that question.
Yeah, or in another cool follow-up you could do at the end of it is, what if it was released now?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like was it a product at the time it was put out in? Was it a wrong place, wrong time kind of thing? There's a series there.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of cult classics where it's like, it came out in a time where people didn't really appreciate it. And then over time, people went, wait a minute, like, that movie was actually really cool, and nobody went and saw it.
It's so crazy. I just had that thought today, and you just gave me the perfect title.
That would be a really good title for it.
It's a really good title for that. Yeah, it's like Kismet. And I don't know if I'll ever get around to that, but that sounds like a really cool idea for a series. Mm-hmm. Brendan also had a $4.99 super chat and just said, apologies for the heavy question. Just curious, as a 10-year viewer here. Well, thanks for your support and for watching, and we really appreciate it. And no need to apologize. I can see why you would be curious about that. I've occasionally had people who are like, Cap, your take of the channel, with your uh, with your honest opinions. And I'm like, well, then I guess I'm going to take the channel. Like that's what I do. I'm not just gonna, run with whatever's trendy.
Yeah, if the Titanic went down because of honest opinions, then it was ultimately worth it.
Sure. John Ty, $5 super chat. Thank you very much. With the horrible work conditions that VFX artists are dealing with in working for the MCU, do you think the CGI in these projects will get worse? And I saw you talking with some people about that earlier, so I'll let you field this, Austin.
So one of the things I think is really interesting with the Marvel effects stuff, and I'm sure it's because they just have so much coming out. You don't really see it from like other Disney branches, like Star Wars. You don't really hear people talk about like, oh, they're constantly releasing things that are unfinished. Like, say what you want about Rise of Skywalker, it doesn't look unfinished in the way that a lot of these Marvel things do.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of that just comes down to oversaturation.
Well, and the one thing I have to give Last Jedi is that's a great looking movie.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
I don't like it, but it looks great.
Yeah, it's a type of movie you could put on while you're like vacuuming. No, it's really interesting.
Put that on the box. Better when you're vacuuming. Anyway. What were you talking about?
I lost it. Sorry.
Well, should I move on?
No.
We'll see if it comes back to you.
Well, it was something about effects, right? Like,
oh yes, sorry.
That's the super chat with.
We were talking about super chat. Yeah.
Work.
So yeah, like he asked, do we think that visual effects will get worse because of bad working conditions?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they can get worse. It's hard to say, but it is interesting because I remember what I was going to say.
I think they're inconsistent. Is the thing. It's not a matter of, you're not seeing a steady decline. You're seeing movies where the effects look better than other movies, and movies where you'll have some shots that are wonderful and other shots that are rushed. And by the way, the MCU has had a green screen problem going all the way back that they've never fixed.
Well, that's what I was going to say is I think steadily from like Age of Ultron, every single movie has some sort of effects issue. And like there's stuff before that, but I think Age of Ultron is one of the first ones where I go, okay, like movie to movie, like I'm having an issue with at least something. And I think part of the reason why I always go to that movie specifically is because I think Iron Man looks really good in every movie before it, and every movie after that, I think there's issues with the CGI on Iron Man.
Yeah.
So it's just, I don't know, it's unfortunate, but it's just, because in the comments you mentioned, I was talking to people earlier before we started, somebody mentioned how they don't like that, we kind of go, oh, well, it's lazy because, like it's not fair to the VFX people because it's not their fault.
No, when I say that, I mean the movie is lazy in the way it's conceptualized.
That's what I was going to say. The part where it becomes lazy is that like the director and the studio go, we don't exactly know what we're doing yet, but cameras need to start rolling. So
have you ever had this thought? This is not exactly one-to-one a great analogy, but I just thought of it and it sounds cute, so I'm going to say it. Marvel has, with its movies, almost a Marvel method problem.
I've been saying that for a while.
Oh, have you really? Like with
their movies on the Marvel method.
With their visual effects, they do it on the Marvel method. They go, I don't know what this is going to look like or what exactly it is, but something action, and then
not even just in effects, like in like even going back to the first Iron Man, like that wasn't a finished script. Like they started filming and were making things up on the day. Like they've always
That
had the
doesn't
kind
mean
of
like
Marvel method.
that worked out and Favreau got really lucky with
Yeah,
it, but that and obviously I have to give him a lot of credit for the fact that it worked, but that doesn't mean they should make every movie like that. And that
well,
doesn't mean they're making every movie exactly like that.
no,
But
no, of course,
it
because I mean, you
it
get
was
people like Gunn who are very,
it was a weird precedent
yeah.
to set. Yeah.
Well, the difference is that sometimes you get an Iron Man and sometimes you get an Iron Man 2, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And
Absolutely. Yeah,
that's just part of that Marvel method.
then you end up with the My Bird problem and having a villain who gets exactly what he wants in the first act and then keeps going for some reason.
Yeah, and I didn't have this thought until I saw somebody the other day say it, which is that there's like no props in the MCU anymore, and like obviously there is. Like, when was the last time you've seen an MCU thing where there's like an important object that people hold and like gets passed around and like is used?
It seems like we still have MacGuffins.
Yeah, but how often is it an actual physical prop that's being passed around?
Yeah, I want to start making that reviews for MCU movies where you just go like, I'm flipping my sign red. There were no props.
Yeah, and like with Thor, for example, Thor 4, there's the scene where they're coming up with a plan, and they're just in like a city hall or like a rec arena room thing, right?
Yeah.
And like they're clearly on a green screen, and it's like, why couldn't you just find a place like this? Or even before COVID stuff, because if you want to throw that out as like a reason, Far From Home has a scene, in the hotel room where Nick Fury is green screened into the hotel room, and the background behind him is just brown. It's just a brown wall. They put a green wall so that they could digitally go in and paint it brown, and that's it. Like,
Boy, that's
the wall doesn't even really match the wall
that sounds
behind
like
Peter
the
Parker.
an encapsulation of the entire problem.
And
Yeah.
there's no real set design for stuff like that, so it makes things feel just kind of empty, and like it lacks character and personality. And the reason why they do this is because VFX artists don't have a union while the crew do, so
Yeah.
they're paying a lot less to just CGI everything, on top of that laziness of they don't have things figured out yet. And it's just it's really unfortunate. It's stuff's definitely got to change.
Yeah, and so then they're treating it like, getting a bunch of day laborers to show up and fix your plumbing or something. Like,
Yeah, and I think when you have stuff
that's
like,
not how art should be put together. It's right, and like I get that it takes a lot of people and a lot of man hours, but at the very least, you got to find a way to give these people enough time to do their jobs.
Mhm.
And
Yeah, and I
and
think
have a real plan in the first place and have a vision in the first place. I mean, I think this would necessarily mitigate the overworked visual effects artist problem where we start imagining like sweatshop workers. Like, that's messed up, because that problem is being compared a lot to like Chinese sweatshop workers. But I think but I think, at least for the sake of the art of the final product, we need to start with just a person with a vision, your director or writer's room or whatever it is, and have a story, have a script, have like an actual fully broken story before you're working on visual effects.
mhm.
Because they're still doing this, where like they've got people storyboarding and they're working on visual effects before they've even picked a director.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Um, no, a lot of that's super crazy, and I think their attitude about it's been really sour. Where they haven't really addressed it on the whole, but then you'll get like Taika Waititi and Tessa Thompson and the material kind of advertising Thor 4, looking at videos and being like, "Oh, look how bad that effect looks! Isn't that like terrible?"
I
And
forgot about that.
you'll get like in jokes with She-Hulk talking about how bad the CGI is, and like I get it because Deadpool-y breaking the fourth wall thing that She-Hulk does, but like it looks really bad, right?
Yeah, it's a bad look. It's in really poor taste.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
you're throwing all these artists under the bus that you're not paying enough in the first place.
Hmm. Yeah,
It
absolutely.
becomes this really thankless job that, by the way, a lot of people are, struggling to break into that would really like to do that. And then they get there and they're like, oh, so this is like being a teacher at public school.
Yeah, and
It's
so
thankless. And I have no control over my destiny. Okay, good.
hmm yeah, and it's interesting, right? Because we're starting to get projects now where Marvel goes, take work away from that movie. We need to put work to this one instead. Where you had that with Black Panther, the first one, where they went, okay, take effects workers off that, put them on Infinity War. Infinity War matters more. And then Black Panther comes out, and throughout that entire movie, the CGI is not very good. And then the climax, it's a lot worse. But I think it goes throughout the whole movie. And then we had the flip of it, weirdly enough, with Black Panther, where they took VFX people off of Ant-Man to finish Wakanda Forever. And Wakanda Forever, I finally watched last night. And through the first two acts, the CGI looks really good, and then in the third act it looks like the first movie again. And so even though we had workers taken off of Ant-Man,
They weren't
uh
working on the third act. I guess that
they,
was done.
yeah, and like, say what you want about Infinity War looked pretty good except for the last minute Hulk change, so
Yeah.
they had some awkward stuff there.
Yep.
But it was like a shot here or there, not the entire third act. And it's I don't know, it's just crazy.
I mean, how do you think they? What do you think the response needs to be? Like, how do you think they need to mitigate that problem? Is it a matter of hiring more people? Is it a matter of let the movies take longer to make?
So I think there's no like one step solution. There's just kind of
Is it an attitude problem? You kind of
it,
alluded to that.
it's just kind of everything. Like, I think they need to be making stuff, you know, on set, and just use CGI for what you need to, and also don't have 8,000 things coming out constantly, so that
Yeah.
it's constantly cannibalizing itself. Because the MCU's effects have hit a point where it's a snake eating its own tail in terms of that, right?
Yeah. Hey, we're approaching 2 hours, so I want to read a couple more questions real quick
Hmm.
and then get to any predictions we haven't talked about yet. So
Yeah.
this is not a super chat, but Harry Henry on something we were talking about earlier, and I just wanted to make this distinction, says technically Elseworlds are more like full-on alternative universes instead of what-if type scenarios. But that was the point I was trying to make, is
Yeah, that we can have both.
we could have both. And if you wanted to spin out, like, what if was kind of trying to do, I think, with Multiverse of Madness, where you introduce like an evil Doctor Strange, and then I don't know if that's supposed to be the same version or not, but
It's not.
is it not? Okay, well, it
No.
reminded me of him. It seemed like
Yeah,
that.
'cause they're both kind of similar ideas. And I mean, we are straight up spinning off in the fact that we're making a Marvel Zombies show.
Marvel Zombies, yeah.
And maybe it won't be that exact world, but like, it's
I
the
hope
same
not,
concept.
because that was kind of
Kind of.
terrible. But
Yeah.
I'm holding out hope that they figured out the issues with that, hopefully. I don't guess there's any reason for me to assume that, but I really like Marvel Zombies, and I think it should be an animated show, and I hope they figured that out. But anyway,
Yeah.
but all I was going to say is, yeah, I was suggesting that it would be nice if they could do an Elseworlds type thing where they could just do, like Austin was suggesting, stories that have nothing to do with any other continuity, and do things like Marvel's and 1602, and like Marvel has its own set of Elseworld stories.
Hmm.
They don't call them that, but it's not a multiverse thing. They're out of continuities.
Yeah, and you can do like a more faithful, like, Old Man Logan thing
Oh my goodness, that'd be
too.
wonderful, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
All of these things, though, sound like cartoon shows to me,
Well,
and
that's the
I
other
think
part
that's
of
what
it
they should be
too.
doing. I keep harping on this, but in case you haven't heard me say it yet, because I think I'm really on to something with this, and I love this idea, and I can't stop saying it. America needs to figure out how to make its own animes, and I don't mean make things look like Japanese animation, unless that's just your inspiration. That's what you want it to look like. But I
Just
mean,
make it as big as anime is in Japan.
we need to take a page out of their book and go, every good comic series is worth doing an animation more or less straight off the page. Invincible did it, and people are obsessed with that show and angry about how long it's taken for the second season to come out. There's no reason not to do that with Old Man Logan. There's no reason not to do that with 1602, etc., etc.
Well, we were getting that with Marvel because Spectacular Spider-Man is very much like classically Ditko stuff being adapted, and then Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes was doing that stuff too, and then Disney bought Marvel and completely canned all that stuff.
And you know, you want to just blame Jeff Loeb, but it's not Jeff Loeb's fault.
I mean, I wake up every day and blame Jeff Loeb, but like on that and that specific.
But just in general, right?
Yeah.
Just I'm blaming Jeff Loeb.
No, I wake up and it's like, oh, it's raining, Jeff Loeb.
My tooth hurts. Frickin' Jeff Loeb.
Exactly.
Goofster123, $10 super chat. Thank you very much. I feel like the believability, really appreciate you. Thanks so much. The believability of the MCU has deteriorated since Endgame. They should have done a Marvel-style show or Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.-esque show about the blip.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I don't disagree with that. Because they've sort of dealt with it here and there, but I feel like it's been a lot of different writers' take, and there's not a cohesive sense of what exactly the status quo is. The idea of doing a miniseries just about that, and you know what I would have called it? If you're going to be as on the nose as they were anyway, you got Endgame, do a miniseries called Aftermath. Why the hell not?
When it feels weird, and I guess we're going to see this with Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, but it feels weird that there's no movies set in between, right? Like,
I think what'll happen is 10 years from now, they'll make a movie like that. You know, like Black Widow was just before Civil War. Like,
yeah, but it'll have to be an introductory thing. Like, it'll be like another Captain Marvel where it's like, by the way, there was this character. They were hanging out in those 5 years.
Dagon Spear, I'll just address this real fast. Cap, are you going to do a 24-hour stream of the other seasons of Smallville? Yes, we're shooting for monthly. So season 2 will be middle of next month is the plan right now. Okay, Austin, what big predictions moving forward do you have?
Oh, God. Okay. I guess I'll take it like movie to movie. I don't know if I have anything. Let me think of. I'll do Fantastic Four, I guess.
Well, I thought you told me you had big thoughts about like things you thought they would adapt, or I forget.
Yeah, I just had like just random kind of like, oh, like I think this is what like Guardians will do. I think this is what that'll do.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know where to start. There's so many projects. I guess with FF, I think like I would rather a Mole Man movie, but I think we're gonna start with Galactus. Specifically so we can immediately spin off Silver Surfer, and we don't have to wait for that. We can have a Silver Surfer movie right away.
Oh boy.
I don't know if you have that, but I think that'll happen. And I agree with what you said earlier, where
I want that, but that might be wishful thinking. I don't know. But I think Silver Surfer is one of those characters that they could latch onto as this could be a new big A-list character that can help propel us forward. Because right now, we're sitting on a lot. I feel like there's an elephant in the room we're not talking about. We're sitting on a bunch of C-list characters that people either don't care about or have not been given a reason to care about yet. I saw somebody earlier in the comments say that the reason they don't care about Kang Dynasty yet is they don't know what the team is. Yeah, and that's fair. Who are our Avengers? We don't even really have Avengers right now.
No, I don't really understand what any of the status quo for that stuff is. And I don't know that they do either, unfortunately.
Yeah. So anyway, sorry, but you brought up Silver Surfer. I think they could be, looking at what they've got moving forward and going, X-Men and Fantastic Four are going to be our ticket to getting back to Iron Man level A-list characters. That's my biggest prediction is all the eggs are going to go in the X-Men basket. And maybe Fantastic Four and maybe kind of combined, which is so ironic given that at one time it looked like we were going to get a shared universe of just those two things at Fox.
I know, right? And
you remember when that almost happened?
To be part of that
Say it
at
again.
one point too. Well, there was almost a point where during like the I think late 2000s where there was going to be like a Daredevil X-Men Fantastic Four thing going
Oh
on
yeah, remember
before
that?
they lost Daredevil. Yeah, um, it's really
It's
funny.
wild.
Yeah, well, with X-Men specifically, because you brought them up, my prediction is that it's like Secret Wars and then the Mutant Saga, and like that's the big thing, and
Oh, okay. You think that'll
that
be the next phase,
that'll be like the next big like
or
it's the
not
Mutant
phase,
Saga.
but the
Yeah.
saga. So we had the Infinity Saga, and then the Multiverse Saga, and then the Mutants. So is that what you're thinking?
That's what I'm thinking.
That's a good point. I mean, that's a good call.
Especially because they can't really touch X-Men till like I think it's like 2025 without involving Singer and Donner's wife. I think I can't remember what her name is. Um, but like a lot of those people from the Fox stuff, they are still under contract, so they can't really touch it for a few years.
Yeah.
But
Well,
that's my prediction is that then they'll jump straight into it, and that's where you'll get like X-Men and all the spin-off stuff.
what are
And
they
just
gonna?
Mhm.
Sorry,
Yeah.
what are they gonna do with Fox X-Men, like nostalgia tickle material before we get to their full-blown X-Men? Is it just Deadpool 3, or do they do more of that kind of stuff after that?
I think in terms of just solo movies, it'll be Deadpool 3, which will be in a way, like the ending of the Fox Men stuff. And then we'll get a lot of those characters back for Secret Wars, I think.
Okay.
There's been talk, not to get morbid, but there's been talk I've heard recently because Patrick Stewart dropped that he and Ian McKellen are talking about being in Deadpool 3.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people saying, oh, well, Marvel's hoping to get them for Secret Wars too, which I think is really weird because that's like 4 years away.
Yeah, you're on a clock at this point, and
Yeah, like I said, not to get more,
it's sad to
like
say that,
it
and
is a thing.
call me ageist or whatever, but I'm just being realistic. The man's 82 years old.
Yeah,
I think
no, they're
McKellen
both
is.
they're both really up
I think
there,
McKellen is older than he is he not? I
and
don't.
I
I don't
think
remember.
McKellen's retired at this point. I could be wrong about that, but I can't recall a movie he's been in like the last several years, like even
I
a show.
I already thought the Picard thing was ridiculous, and now we're talking about putting Patrick Stewart in a movie that's not going to be out for 4 years.
Mhm.
Okay. I mean,
Yeah,
if he's still around and available and wants to do it and is healthy and whatever, fine, whatever. But yeah, announcing it would be weird.
yeah, no, exactly. But no, I think it'll be kind of Deadpool 3, and then um, that's mostly it.
Well, and we should talk about the big thing that you and I both want because we're in agreement. I think we both even thought of it separately. Deadpool 3 should be Deadpool kills the X-Men, the Fox universe,
Yeah, and
and
it won't be.
adapt from Cullen Bunn's the brilliant comic because that's one of my favorite things. It's the only reason I am like a sort of halfway uh like embarrassed Deadpool fan because I really like I don't even like to say it out loud, but I really like Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe, and it'd be really cool to see that adapted with just the movie X-Men franchise. I think that's a brilliant idea, and I'm with you. That's not what they're doing.
Yeah, and oh man, now I feel embarrassed because I don't remember, but they just cast the villain for that movie. I can't remember if they said who it is or if they just said like this actress will be the bad guy or bad woman.
Well, I was about to say, I guarantee I know who it's not.
Who's that?
It's not gonna be Mr. Sinister,
It'll never be Mr. Sinister.
but
He
they'll
will be
have
he will be the main
some
villain
tease to
of
Sinister in that movie.
he'll be the main villain of the Mutant Saga.
Okay, I know we've been over this in other videos before. I don't know,
Yeah.
or I don't know if you've talked to me about this, but we've talked about this a little bit in the Captain Logan show.
Mhm.
Million dollar question:
Yeah.
are they gonna call the movie X-Men when they finally get to their own X-Men, or do they do the Mutants thing? And if they do the Mutants thing, how much goodwill does that destroy, and does that by itself hurt box office?
Um, I'm gonna throw a wrench in your question and say I could see them doing both, but I don't think there's any way that there isn't a movie called X-Men. But I could also see them doing a The Mutants TV show or a movie as well, because like I said, I think that's going to be their big ticket
That's
after
not a
Secret Wars.
problem for people, though. If they have something called X-Men, especially as long as their X-Men movie has, characters you've heard of in it,
Yeah.
nobody's going to care that they also have a thing called the Mutants. They also just might not watch it.
Yeah. No, I could see the Mutants.
But if that's their big saga, they probably would. I mean, if they put out a movie right now just called Multiverse, even though a lot of people don't care about the multiverse thing, it sounds important, so they'll go, right? Like,
yeah, most likely. That's
they actually should have
done
done
went
that.
wrong. They should have called it Multiverse Mania.
Although I guess they did put the word multiverse in Multiverse of Madness, and that movie did fine, I think. But it's not like
it was just short of $1 billion. It was like 900 million.
Okay.
People went, oh, like that was like a big disappointment because it was after Spider-Man. But like, it still made a lot of money.
It made a lot of money because people thought it was going to have movie characters in it, and all it had was Professor X. But like, I was excited that wasn't what the whole movie was riding on. Like,
yeah, and I think
it's consistent. I guess if you love No Way Home
right.
and you were disappointed with Doctor Strange, it's consistent. I get that, but that means you're going to those for different reasons than I am.
Yeah, and I'm worried that they'll learn the wrong lesson from that and go, well, Spider-Man made more money because we shoved everyone in there, and Doctor Strange didn't because we didn't do that. So make sure the Secret Wars has, like a subplot of Hugh Jackman and Tobey Maguire and Robert Downey Jr. hanging out.
Make sure we get really obscure. We go back to TV. We pull out characters from Mutant X.
Well, I want I want the '60s Spider-Man cartoon character just walking around, and he's the only animated one. He's just there.
Burned in $4.99 super chat. The Last Jedi is great and not vacuuming material, Austin. However, Rise of Skywalker, on the other hand, was pretty tolerable while I was building IKEA furniture.
I mean, I also like getting bashed over the head with a hammer, so to each his own, I guess.
Robert Wild, just call the reboot the Uncanny X-Men, please.
Is please part of the title?
No, but he didn't put any punctuation, so I didn't say it with any punctuation.
Oh, okay. I want that, just like X-Men, the Uncanny X-Men. Please watch.
I don't know. You're sounding a little desperate right now, Marvel. I don't know what's happening.
Hire Jeb Bush to take over Marvel. Just every movie's gonna say, "Please watch."
So I alluded to this earlier, but my big prediction beyond they're gonna. X-Men and Fantastic Four are going to be the saving graces, and for them, you're going to see the major characters from those doing a lot of the heavy lifting moving forward. I think, let me say this real quick, too. I think that some of the kind of C-list characters that they've been introducing, trying to make a big deal out of, because the machine is moving forward, you'll see them for a while in major movie projects, and then if people don't start caring about them, they will disappear. Like most of the Eternals characters, I don't think you'll ever see again.
I was actually going to ask you about that. Is what you think about the future of the Eternals?
I think there will be one token.
It's very wishy-washy.
I don't know who it is. I think you'll have, because I've seen that movie once and I can't remember who they made a big deal out of at the end. But I think you'll see
Star Fox and Pip the Troll.
But I mean of the actual Eternals characters.
Oh, okay.
I don't. They'll have like one or two token ones that they'll have that will show up in things, not to keep reminding us that they're Eternals.
Or they just won't ever address it. Like those characters will show up and they'll never mention that. But
maybe so.
Who knows?
Well, the continuity just feels kind of splintered to me right now. Like it feels like they're not talking to each other, and I'm kind of confused about some continuity things. And why are we as sloppy as we are now? When that was one of the big things people complained about with Thanos and things early on, and like after credit scenes in Phase 2 and 3 that didn't match up with things that happened later. How do you do stuff like in Far From Home? Mysterio makes up with 616, and then by Phase 4, it's actually called that. How do you do that? That's crazy.
I mean, I don't know. It's just like an Easter egg. But what I was thinking, I didn't have the thought until just now. How weird is it that every single MCU project, like movie thing, has had like that one character that they're setting up, whether it's in an after credit scene or whatever. But those are never the characters that get spin-off TV shows or like other things.
You'd
Like,
think after Guardians 2, they'd be making a big deal out of like original Guardians team, and we'd have a sense that they might get their own movie at some point.
or even like, the Eternals had Black Knight. We've had nothing with Black Knight since. Doctor Strange had Clea. We've seen nothing of Clea.
Well, that just came out.
No, and that just came out. But and that one I think makes most sense because it's those two going off to do Doctor Strange 3. But
yeah, but you know what'll happen? He'll be involved. He'll be involved
Exactly.
in some major event thing, and she'll be there. And then when they do that movie, we'll find out about all these things that happened in between that should have been that actual movie, like with what happened with Doctor Strange 2, where he's already fought Mordo. We just had it off screen. We didn't even get to see that happen.
Well, and that is like a rumor right now, is that Doctor Strange 3 is being fast tracked to come out before Avengers, but we'll see with that. Who knows?
Yeah.
With Thor, like we introduced Hercules. Like you could have done a Hercules show after that. We didn't, and now who knows what's happening with anything Thor related. It's really weird. You'd think that they would maybe get their ducks in a row a little bit more. In terms of stuff like that.
Plushy DX says Mysterio had a dream. Oh, that explains it.
Yeah.
Because dreams now in the MCU are always visions of another universe.
Mysterio...
We just made that part of the canon in film 29 or whatever.
Mysterio, he hit his head on a toilet and came up with the idea of 616. He saw it vividly.
And that's what makes multiversal travel possible.
Exactly.
So the thing I was getting to earlier though is and I kind of talked about this already at the beginning, but let me reiterate. My big prediction is beyond just using X-Men and Fantastic Four characters as their new kind of big A-list staple, I think that we could get to a desperate point if a lot of stuff in Phase 5 is not real well received, where we really are doing a lot of recasting of the major characters from early on and trying to spur them forward, because there's got to be this worry for them right now where it's like, well, we keep introducing these characters that haven't gotten popular yet and are supposed to be our new big A-list characters, but what we're finding is maybe we should have just recast and not let people age out, because the same characters that people loved and were obsessed with Marvel 8 years ago are more or less the same ones they care about now. Your Iron Man, your Captain America, your Hulk. That's kind of the big characters, right?
Yeah, I'd say their biggest character right now is Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And so, that's, not changed.
Yeah. And he doesn't even need MCU.
No, exactly.
Like, he could do fine without it.
Yep. And
the MCU kind of needs him right now.
Yeah, no, exactly. What
does it say
based on two companies agreeing with each other that can even continue?
What does it say? This is interesting, that your most popular and highest grossing movie and Spider-Man movies always do well, but that your highest grossing movie in Phase 4 is a movie that was all about tickling the nostalgia bone for people for other Spider-Man franchises.
Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting because the MCU Spider-Man movies are the highest grossing Spider-Man movies. Like, Far From Home was the highest grossing one. It was the first one to hit $1 billion. And then,
then No Way Home hit 2.
And then
close.
No Way Home goes, okay, what story we're going to do? We're going to do Spider-Verse, which is the lowest grossing Spider-Man movie, but it won an Oscar. So, do more of that. And then,
but it's animated. You don't expect that to do this. I mean, it probably did, I haven't looked at it. It probably did close to Lego Movie numbers, because, that movie was beloved, but, I don't know, kids' movies just don't make that kind of money.
No, and I'm not criticizing it for that.
Mean,
I'm just
Pixar
saying,
used to.
I'm just saying it's interesting that they went to that over Far From Home, which was the biggest, but...
I'm sorry, I lost the plot somewhere in there, but...
No, it's okay.
Robert, well, at least we still have Hulk and Thor, kind of. Yeah, well, except Hemsworth doesn't want to do it anymore, it sounds like.
I think Thor will get killed off pretty quickly in Kang Dynasty or
Yeah,
Secret Wars.
he'll come back, but then he'll be done. And Hulk has been a parody of himself thanks to a Thor movie.
Hulk straight up said bruh in She-Hulk. The second that you have Bruce Banner going, bruh, you're done. Your Hulk sucks. And the big thing with Hulk...
You know what? The more I hear you talk about that show... Because,
Yeah.
like, I'm going to finally watch it, but I don't...
that's going to be a big, weird place for Hulk, but
I
anyways.
don't want to. And every time I hear you talk about it, I'm realizing that I'm going to have to get good and drunk before I sit down and watch that show. Like, that's what I'm finding.
Well, and that's, every major piece of Hulk's character arc has always been off screen. Like, it's just between every appearance, that's where the important Hulk things happen, including in She-Hulk between episodes. And now, like, it's going to be really... Hulk is one of those characters that's, I think, going to be awkward when they show up next in a movie, because we've changed the status quo so much.
People are talking in the comments about how things like X-Men and even Spider-Man are often kind of, off in their own pocket and almost like their own universe. Do you think that the MCU could play X-Men and Fantastic Four that way to some degree? And do you think it would be smart if they did that? Where it's like, well, even if nobody cares about any of this other stuff, at least we've got this pocket of the universe, so let's not have X-Men cross that much with anything. I can kind of see that going both ways.
So I actually disagree, because I think X-Men is going to be the big thing, like I said with the Mutant Saga thing. But like...
Oh, okay. You'll
get
say
X-Men,
that.
and then it'll trickle out where you get, there's no way they don't do Wolverine solo films.
Yeah.
I could see them doing like a Gambit or Nightcrawler show.
I was going to say, if those are huge, I could see them giving everybody their own movie.
Exactly.
Or a Disney Plus show.
Exactly. It's it's rife for spin-off material.
I could also see them
deciding... And then they'll do the Avengers versus X-Men movie, where we take whoever we have left from the Avengers stuff, and then they'll fight X-Men. And my prediction is that's where we'll do Dark Phoenix to make it different, because that's...
because Dark Phoenix is massively involved in that, and then instead of making it Phoenix coming back, you just have it be the way she shows up in the first place.
Jean, you just replace it with that.
And can I tell you, I like that.
Yeah.
Like, I think they actually should do that. Like,
no, I think that's a cool idea.
I thought you might be bringing that up as like the obvious thing. It is obvious. It's also what they should do. And part of the reason I'm saying that is because they've kind of blown quite a few of the big events that people remember that were real well liked in the comics, and some of the ones they haven't done, I don't see them doing with the status quo they have and with the way they've handled certain characters. Like, it would be really weird to do, for instance, Fear Itself now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Let's do Everyone Gets a Hammer now.
Yeah.
that stuff is too serious. I don't see it. Although it would be really interesting if they wrote Nick Fury out the way they did in the comics.
Where he killed the Watcher?
Where he becomes the new Watcher?
That'd be pretty funny.
I mean, Sam Jackson is also starting to get up in years, and nobody's talking about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think part of that's because he looks so good.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean
that's
that
not
he's
going to
not
last
an
forever.
Old person.
I mean, you could say the same thing about Patrick Stewart up to a certain point. Like, he's only started to show his age in like the last 5 years.
5 years. Yep.
Like,
it really was the moment Picard started. I think that show aged him.
It's whichever comes first between Picard and Logan. Logan was like the first time I saw him where I was like, oh, like he's gotten old.
So I'm going to fight you on that a little bit,
okay.
because I think in of course you haven't watched Picard. I think his acting, yeah, but like living with him in that show, it seemed like mentally he was starting to show his age in a way he wasn't yet in Logan. Like, physically, yeah, you could see him starting to show his age a little bit, but he's still, and I'm not saying he's not all there or whatever, but like, he's playing senile. Logan.
His performance is still really good. Is what you're saying.
Yeah, and also he's playing up age. He's playing old.
Yeah, because
then you go to Picard, and he is old. That's the difference.
Yeah, Well, I was thinking more so physically, but yeah. I mean, we both had it with Doctor Strange, where like he's really old in that movie, and
Yeah.
it's kind of distracting.
But I think it would. But I also think he's supposed to be, and that's why they're really playing that up.
No, I'm saying Doctor
Oh,
Strange.
Doctor Strange. I'm sorry. Sorry, I was reading
No,
comments.
of
My
course.
apologies.
In Logan, he's supposed to be old.
He's supposed to
Like,
be
for
old,
sure.
yeah. No, it doesn't work in Doctor Strange at all, and that was a mistake. And because that's Picard, Patrick Stewart at that point. He's spent too much time on that show, and it's taken a lot out of him. Anyway, let me read this comment real quick. Jareth Gearhart, I was the one who said that about the Avengers team. Who would you both like to see lead the new team, or in? I don't know if he's saying lead the new team or just in the new team. I don't personally want another team. I don't really understand some of that comment, but
So lead the new team. I think it'll be Captain America. I think if we do anything where we go, here is like an Avengers team, it'll probably be in Captain America, where like he'll just have a team that he leads. Because Captain America's led a team in every single Captain America movie, so that makes the most sense to do. When we get into actual Avengers, I think it's going to get muddy again, because it's the same thing with Infinity War and Endgame, really, because they're just event movies.
So here's the problem.
Mhm.
We actually have some new, I keep calling them C-list characters that I like, okay, that I would love to see on a team together, but not be the actual A-list mainstream Avengers. And the problem is you don't have enough of those characters right now, so they kind of have to be. So what I would love to see is Falcon Cap is leading a young Avengers team. And it's got
interesting.
And it's got Miss Marvel, and it's got
there's a ton of those young Avengers.
And it's got the new Hawkeye, because I really like her, and it's got America Chavez, who I adored in that movie.
And they can introduce Iron Lad, who is a variant of Kang.
Okay. And I know that they would probably do Riri Williams there, and she was super whatever in that movie, but maybe they could make her cooler. Like, she's nothing before she's awful. I didn't think the actress brought anything to the table, and
I was unfair to the MCU. I forgot there was a major prop in a recent MCU movie.
And it was Riri Williams? Well,
Uh,
she was. She's just a plot device. She puts on an Iron Man suit and she flies around. That's all she does.
That's the other big formula right now, right? Is the teenage hero that the main hero has to protect from the villain that wants to kill them.
Sorry, I was distracted by this. I love that Plushie DX wrote this right before I just listed off all the new Phase 4 characters I liked, because he said the problem is Logan doesn't like Phase 4 characters. Not true.
I mean, that's me with Shang-Chi. Like, I don't
just
like
told you
Shang-Chi
some of the
at
characters
all,
I like.
but people like them.
No, I think that there have been certainly some weak ones, but I think there's been like weak shows before there's been weak characters.
Yeah, no, I agree with that.
You know what I mean? Like, I haven't finished Miss Marvel yet. I thought that actress was great. I mean, I thought she did a really good job, and I think there's plenty to do with her down the road.
That actress even like off camera comes off like Kamala Khan, so it seems like they found the exact right person.
That's really cool. I'm not gonna give them any crap for putting her in stuff, even if that show isn't ultimately great. Like I said, I haven't finished it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I said, like, I'm indifferent to Riri Williams. I didn't hate her like I expected to, but I had no feeling towards her. So like, maybe they could win me over more so moving forward.
She just has no personality.
Yeah.
In the comics, she's so excited about everything, and in the movie, she's just built some stuff. That's what I did. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't really get anything off her, which is funny because they made me like Shuri slightly more in the second one, and then they introduced Ironheart, and I was like,
and she could be in the Young Avengers too.
She might be a little too old at this point. I don't know.
Maybe, but Well, and of course,
I
Falcon
don't know
Cap's
how
not
old she's
like
supposed to be.
young, but I like the idea of him leading that team.
Well, yeah, and Falcon Cap's like 40.
Yeah, I know.
With
I
kids.
know, but he can be like the Zordon or something, right? Like
Yeah.
he can be more of in a mentor role. That wouldn't be bad actually.
For the Young Avengers, if we ever get there, is Wiccan and whatever the speedster one is, Scarlet Witch's kids.
Yeah. But I mean, I'm just talking
Probably.
about the characters they have right now. Like they could right away call a thing. Like whatever the characters are in the actual comics. I'm just saying they could have a
No,
team
I just mean
of.
because we have them cast. Like we could find some sort of way to bring them in.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
Well, the Scarlet Witch's kids.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Sorry, I'm caught
No,
up now. Okay.
Yeah.
It didn't occur to me that they'd ever be superheroes.
Yeah, they have. It's like Wiccan and.
I don't know why that.
Something.
That's
else.
why I didn't know what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Okay. That never
no,
occurred to me. Well, you know, there's a disconnect with me with comics sometimes where like you introduce characters as just these people, and I'm like, oh, that's right, they're adapted.
Yeah, it's because
Okay.
WandaVision has like elements of that where like they have their powers, where one of them's a speedster and one of them has her powers, and then that was kind of it. But I could see them bringing them back if we do a Young Avengers thing. I don't think it'll be called Young Avengers. They'll probably.
No, I was using that as a shorthand. It doesn't have to be.
No, I know
that.
it'll probably be what Champions. I think that book's called.
Well, and yeah, and I kind of hope not, just because.
Well, no, I don't. I think it'll probably just, if we do a Young Avengers like team, they'll probably just use that name instead of Young Avengers.
Well, you know what I think they're more likely to do. Here's a prediction. Because everybody I'm naming off is female. I think and I guess most of the new characters that I've liked have been girls. Maybe they'll just do A-Force.
It'll be called, because you had Falcon Cap, it'll be called Falcon Cap and his amazing gals.
No, I mean, you'd have to lose Falcon Cap at that point, but maybe they'll just straight up do A-Force.
Yeah,
and
I mean, there was talk about it early on.
I could see them doing that and have it, depending on how Marvel's performs, and I'm not expecting big numbers from that, but
I'm fascinated to see how that goes, because I don't either.
It's also entirely going to depend on what the trailers look like, I think, and like what that story is. But if they put that out, because if it's what I'm hearing, like the rumor mill that it's like Miss Marvel and Captain Marvel keep like teleporting and switching places, that's such a weird premise.
Well, and that's what Miss Marvel sets up. I know, like they like swap.
Oh, is that right? Like I said, I haven't finished that.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, I don't care. It's not a big deal. I should have watched it by now, but.
That was like the big thing I heard, was that was like the ending, is that they like switch places.
But
so
I was just gonna say,
so.
I could maybe see Captain Marvel being the Zordon of that team if it was an all-female team.
Yeah, I could see that.
And then she's got Miss Marvel below her, and maybe still Monica Rambeau, maybe not. But if you went with all like specifically teenage or early 20s, you've still got enough. You've got Riri Williams. I mean, whatever with whether we like these characters, but you got Riri Williams. You got Kate Bishop. You've got, I've already named these off, but I want to get the number here.
America
you've
Chavez.
got America Chavez. Miss Marvel, that's
possibly
4.
Wanda's kids.
Yeah. But even just with the characters we've already set up, if you did throw Shuri in there, you've got 5 already.
Oh, yeah, sorry, and you said like the A-Force thing, because Wanda's kids
I was talking about the A-Force thing, yeah.
Sorry.
So if you threw her in there, you now have enough for a Power Rangers team.
Yeah.
So like I could see it.
Yeah, no, that works. And they all have different powers, unlike Thunderbolts.
And they all have powers.
Mm-hmm.
So you haven't and maybe they'll do something with what's her face from Black Widow at some point. And not that she'd be on A-Force necessarily, but hasn't there been talk about her being like the new Black Widow?
Yeah, she's the new Black Widow. She's in Thunderbolts. Thunderbolts looks like it's going
I keep forgetting who's even in Thunderbolts. I guess that's got
Thunderbolts looks like is going to be a spiritual successor to Black Widow, because it's got her Red Guardian and Taskmaster were in that team.
Okay, and the leader of that's supposed to be Winter Soldier, yeah?
Yeah, it was those 4 and Ghost. That was the lineup they showed off, because they're all variants of soldier person except for Ghost. It's really weird.
Ballin's Cubicle 499 Super Chat. Thanks a bunch. Sorry for not getting to this until now. What do you think about the writer of Kang Dynasty saying that Namor will be in it? I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, it was in an interview, I think this week. Somebody asked him like what he was most excited about for Kang Dynasty, and he was like, Namor. It's gonna be great. I'm so excited to write Namor.
Wow.
I don't know if he'll be like a main character, but I could see him. I'm trying to think. So I could see that going two ways. That's either like a Black Panther in Infinity War or a Thor in Infinity War, right? Like he either gets a big kind of side plot, or he's just kind of
there.
He's just kind of there.
I'm concerned. John Ty, I mean, Kate doesn't have powers. Okay, that's fair. But you got to have your one Hawkeye character, I guess.
Well, yeah. At least her power is her spirit. Okay, she's heart. She is heart.
Go Planet. Even he had a power. I mean, the rings give everybody power.
Yeah, but it wasn't a good power.
No, it wasn't.
She at least has a bow.
No, it gives him the Aquaman sound effect when the ripples come out of his head. And yes, I meant Aquaman and not Ant-Man.
I was gonna say it's the ripple where he shrinks down.
No, my main concern with Kang Dynasty is that it's written by the same guy who wrote the new Ant-Man movie, because that's terrible.
Yeah.
Or I say terrible. I said I didn't hate it, so I can't say terrible, but some of the writing is terrible. And that's not what we want for that movie. So folks that are saying, well, like, don't worry about Kang Dynasty because that's going to be a big Avengers event thing and it's not going to be in the same mode as Ant-Man, even though that introduced Kang, but it's written by the same guy. Right?
I bet you they bring on another writer. I don't know if they'll fully replace him, but I bet you they will bring in somebody that does enough rewriting that they get a credit for it.
Well, they've got to be early enough in the process they can do that.
Oh, 100%, because that movie doesn't come out till 2025, I think.
Well, let me ask you this real quick. We're already at 2.5 hours. We need to probably close up shop here, but we've covered a bunch of ground. Let me ask you this. Is it a misstep that it will have been that long before we have a movie with Avengers in the title? Because I could see both sides to that.
I'm going to say no, because I think that distance away is the kind of thing you were talking about with the MCU in general. And like, I get we still had stuff in between, but I think it will be a big deal that like, oh, we're doing Avengers again, and it's been like 6 years. I think it will be a big deal because of that.
Oh, you think that's smart from a marketing standpoint?
Well, I think that people will be excited. They'll be like, "Oh man, it's Avengers again!" Like the Avengers movies are the ones that matter because they're the event ones.
Don't you think the character lineup will matter to some degree?
Yes, but I also think no matter what, that's like $1.5 billion at the box office.
Well, let's talk about this for a second too, because I keep throwing out the new younger, like I keep saying, C-list characters. It's so weird because at first I thought where I was going to go with that is here's all these lame characters that I don't really want to see on an Avengers team, and now I'm finding myself thinking, no, that actually sounds kind of good or potentially good compared to what a more like adult quote unquote A-list Avengers team could be, because I could see that being new Black Widow, new Hawkeye, which is still the same character that I threw in Young Avengers, new Captain America. They don't have a new Thor.
No.
Because they killed her off. I thought they were doing that. I really thought they were building to, here's all these new characters that took the mantles. It will be a 6-man team that's the exact same mantles for the 2012 Avengers, but all new characters. That's, I guess, not what they're doing, but I can see them getting close.
I'm going to throw out Hercules will be new Thor.
Maybe so. That's a good call.
But I also don't...
But you think they'll do that? Will they go squarely 6? And then what is Riri Williams Iron Man?
So that was what I was going to say is I don't look at Kang Dynasty or Secret Wars in that way where I go, okay, well, what's the Avengers team going to be? I just go, that's the event movie. Like the Guardians will show up, like whatever's left of them after 3.
Well, the precedent in
Spider-Man will be there. Sorry, what's that?
The precedent that Infinity War and Endgame set was Avengers just means all the superheroes.
No, exactly. So I don't look at it and go, okay, well, what's the Avengers team in it gonna be? I just go, well, it's gonna be everybody. Like the Fantastic Four will be there because they're connected to Kang, and like all those characters, Shang-Chi, Moon Knight, She-Hulk, like everyone will show up for that. And then Secret Wars is probably where we'll be. We got everybody plus everybody from before. Like now we have Hugh Jackman and Toby and all that stuff. Because I don't think we've talked about this on the channel. I think I've said this to you before. I think their big Kang Dynasty like snap moment cliffhanger thing will be that Kang destroys the multiverse and creates Battle World, and that's the only thing that's left, and that's the ending of that movie. And then we get Secret Wars where we wrap that up.
Yep.
That's
I
the only thing I can
can't
think of.
I can't argue with that. I mean, that just makes too much sense, and that would give them a Thanos snap without it being a Thanos snap.
Exactly, and it will feel bigger. And when you take everything from the multiverse, that's how you bring in your legacy characters plus your MCU characters.
Yep. And then that lets you kind of reset things and get back to brass tacks after that.
Yeah, exactly. And then you can
But I
never
hope they
touch
actually
the
do that.
multiverse again, or you can do stuff here and there. Who
If
knows?
they're gonna say multiverse saga, my hope would be, and then we don't have one of those anymore.
And then we stop. Like maybe you can do a multiverse thing here and there, but by and large, we're done with that now.
Yep.
Now it's the mutant saga. I'm just gonna say it until Feige makes it happen because it's gonna happen.
No, I think you're spot on with both of those things. With like that'll be the cliffhanger between the two big event movies, because I hadn't been really associating Kang Dynasty with Secret Wars at all.
Yeah, so I think they were just right out the gate going, yeah, we're not gonna do the part one and part two thing again because we dropped that pretty quick, and
But they are related.
We don't want to have that walking it back. Yeah, because they're I think it's been pushed back a little bit, but they were only coming out like 6 months apart in that initial announcement.
Everybody's telling me in the comments that Thor got a daughter. Yeah, but they're not going to take that little kid and make her the new Thor in the big Avengers movie. Like that's not going to happen.
Yeah,
She again.
well, that's
she could be a
actual daughter. I don't even know if she'll come back.
She could be a young Avenger, but I don't think that'll happen either. But I'm just saying that like what I really thought at one point they might do, and I'd forgotten about this, was again just having like adults that are all taking the mantles and then do a square 6-man team. But maybe that's not what they'll do.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it would be cool if Kang Dynasty was a more traditional Avengers movie, and then Secret Wars was the event movie, and we kind of got to have our cake and eat it too.
But it's more likely that they'll both feel like big event movies, just like Infinity War did. And
exactly.
Plush EDX said, and I want to read this because you've said this to me multiple times yourself, almost verbatim. He says, "I don't like that the Avengers movies all have to be Infinity War level event films now."
Yeah, one that's a really big thing. I'm praying that James Gunn doesn't do with Justice League in DC. Is that Justice League can just be Justice League movies. They don't need to be everyone. But we'll see. But yeah, I don't like that with Avengers either, because they're not Avengers movies. And sure, the event thing goes back to the first movie in that those were the characters we had and they all came together, but it was the Avengers. And then Age of Ultron is okay. Let's make a sequel to that. And it also sucked, but like that was a whole other thing. And then after that, they're event movies, and I like Infinity War. I mixed on Endgame. Like it would be nice to just get Avengers movies again that are just that team and adaptations of that stuff.
It's so weird to say that. This is not the right way to put it. I want to say Infinity War almost feels like quaint or something now. Which is like, I guess I'm just saying that because it was a massive movie with giant stakes that didn't feel gimmicky in the same way something like No Way Home does.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I guess that's why I'm saying that.
Mm-hmm. No, and I think one of the things going into Secret Wars is that like it's Avengers, but there's no doubt in my mind that the Fantastic Four will be one of the biggest parts of that movie. And when you get that, it's like, it's not an Avengers movie anymore. And you can say that with Infinity War and the Guardians, but I have issues with that too. Uh, you know,
Yeah, but
whatever.
tonally that still felt like an Avengers movie.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
And
And the
Endgame at
Avengers
least had
characters
like,
are at least like the main characters.
well, and they sort of pay it off with the Guardians thing because by Endgame, Rocket is more or less an Avenger.
Yeah, which is also weird. I don't like
Well,
that. I don't
he
like that Rocket
he
wasn't a.
stops being an Avenger. I don't have a problem with it during the 5-year blip. Like,
No, but that's what I'm saying. Is my issue with that is that Rocket's been an Avenger longer than he has a Guardian because of the 5-year gap. I think that's really weird. But uh, with Infinity War, that movie's kind of split into three different plots. It's kind of got that Guardians 2 thing where we split it almost exactly the same way, where it's three. But you have the Iron Man plot, you have the Captain America plot, and you have the Thor plot. So you kind of did take the main trinity of the Avengers. And,
yeah,
it at least has that.
yeah, exactly. That's what I was gonna say. Okay, we've got to wrap up here. Was there any other prediction or project you wanted to mention that we haven't gotten to at all? It's not our fault they announced 100,000 things.
Just because I'm excited for Guardians 3, I'll give a little speculation on that, I guess. I think so I've said for the longest time that I think Rocket will die at the end of that movie.
After the last couple of trailers, you're right. That is what will happen. Absolutely.
No, so I'm actually thinking that they might be playing that card too hard because they're going to subvert that.
Oh, see, I tried to make a bet with you about this at one point, and now I'm thinking you're right, and now you're going to turn it around on me.
Yeah.
Is it Star-Lord? Star-Lord dies?
Dan made a really good point to me that he thinks that it could end with Star-Lord sacrificing himself for Gamora, and I'm like, I could see that. I also think that Rocket could die, though. It could go anywhere. I'm not sure exactly where Gunn's gonna go.
Yeah.
I'm just pretty sure that Adam Warlock will end up with Gamora by the end. I think we'll do that comic booky thing, and I'm excited. I'm excited for that movie.
I'm sure it'll be great. I'm not like stoked yet, but
No, I'm very excited. I had two like most anticipated movies of the year. It was Cocaine Bear and Guardians 3. So now I'm just waiting for my second one.
well, at least you liked your first one.
Yeah, that was nice. And I'm glad that it didn't bomb because of Ant-Man. I was really worried that was going to happen. It was going to be one of those movies that you would then cover on Funeral for a Film.
Yeah, well, it eclipsed Ant-Man in its second week, which is absurd.
Yeah, it was like real close. I think that made like 20 million and Ant-Man got 30.
But that's really good for that kind of movie.
No, it absolutely is.
And that probably didn't cost anything to make.
And I feel like that will probably have bigger legs. But who knows?
Super Billy, I agree. Hopefully, after the multiverse saga, we go a long time before we do giant culminations, let loose and drop the baggage of long-term setup and sprawling interconnectivity. I mean, that would be wonderful. I also think that they're going to do these kind of event films every 4 or 5 years.
No, it'll be Avengers versus X-Men.
But if they have to do one, that's what I want. I do. I love that book.
I don't know.
Have you read it?
Yeah. No, that event's great.
AVX is wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that has one of my favorite Spider-Man event moments, and that I really hoped would show up in Infinity War.
Super Billy says I'm betting on Drax and Star-Lord. What if they all die?
I honestly like James Gunn. Don't let Marvel take over these characters, please.
Just kill them all.
Just kill them all.
Can you believe James Gunn made the end of his Guardians movies like Hunchback of Notre Dame? It's amazing. He just killed everyone.
You flash back to the first movie, and there's just like a moment where Star-Lord goes, "Okay, everybody, we're gonna make a pact right now. We're gonna make a suicide pact that we'll all kill ourselves if we ever meet Rocket's creator." And then it'll just all end with them dying.
It's like, I really didn't expect that every single thing we saw in the trailers was from the first act of this film. And then just a completely different cast took over for the other 2/3 of it.
Yeah, it's really weird that he chose to end it on a Adam Warlock movie where he just kind of bums around after seeing all these people die.
No, the big prediction that I made before the Guardians trailers came out, and now Austin and I are flipping apparently, is they won't kill Rocket because they'll make him an Avenger again. Because he was an Avenger in Endgame.
I actually disagree. I think if Rocket lives, he's the leader of the Guardians at the end of that movie, and that's where we move forward with him.
Maybe so, but that doesn't mean he can't show up and be an Avenger.
No, but I mean, everyone will be an Avengers. But
exactly,
if he lives, I think that will be the character arc, is that he's now the leader, and he went from like the rambunctious teen that was like an issue to being the mature leader one. That is my prediction. If he dies, it could go anywhere.
Plushy DX says they might all die. I guess it's possible. I hadn't really given that any thought. I feel like Gamora is super expendable.
I don't think they'll kill Gamora because it'd be weird.
Because they already killed her. But I also think
she could retire, though. I don't know if she'll come back after that movie.
Yes, but it wouldn't be that weird if they killed everyone. She won't be the only one they leave alive.
That is true. No, that movie will just end with Adam Warlock and Cosmo like flying off into the sunset.
Okay, we've got to get going. It's 1:00. I need to go to bed. I never do these shows this late on a weekday. Well, I shouldn't say never. But you guys are wonderful. Thanks a lot for being here. We had a lot of engagement and big crowd tonight, and you guys are wonderful. Thanks a bunch. I will be back again tomorrow night for Captain Logan Show at 7:00 Central Time. I was supposed to have guests on tomorrow night, but they needed to postpone, so we're gonna have a regular show. And I don't know what the lead-in topic is gonna be yet, but I will try to announce that sometime midday tomorrow. And then Austin and I will be back Wednesday night to talk about a comic series from DC Young Animals called Far Sector. Yep. And I haven't started reading that yet. I need to get to that. But that's what we're doing Wednesday. And then I'm out of town again. I had back-to-back basketball tournaments I've got to drive Jason to. So we're going all the way to Wisconsin this weekend. So I got to drive 8.5 hours one way. So I'm going to try to do at least one live show while I'm out of town, kind of an impromptu Captain Logan show. But I'm not promising anything because I just don't know what my evenings are going to be like yet with that trip. Mm-hmm. But anyway, that's the schedule this week. And Austin, I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to do this on a Monday again.
Yeah, no, it was fun. Last prediction I'll throw out, we don't have to talk about it.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just going to throw it out, is Secret Wars will recreate the classic Black Spider-Man cover. That's the last prediction I'm throwing out.
I think that's true. But they won't do it on a poster like they should.
No, because Marvel posters suck.
Why do they still say? Why are they more consistent with that than they are with their continuity?
I don't know. They released a book about their continuity. I don't know if you saw that. They released an official MCU timeline book.
I heard they were going to. I didn't know it was out already.
I think it's out, or it's coming out. But
should we read it? Should we review it?
Yeah, we'll do 3 hours talking about the timeline, and we'll make sure to pick it apart because there'll be stuff that doesn't make sense.
Well, I actually have a video I want to pitch you.
Oh, okay.
That I know people would be interested in. I kind of want to, because I did this with Eric years ago, and now we've had a lot more movies, and I get requests for this. I was thinking about pitching you doing a full MCU ranking video again, going all the way through 4.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that today. I was like, that might be a fun thing to do at some point. I got to catch up because there's you
haven't seen everything.
I haven't seen, and I haven't seen Ant-Man. But yeah, I'd be down to do that.
A part of me wants to do it just movies.
Oh, that'd be a lot easier. And there's like nothing I have to catch up on.
And do it without the shows. But I know people will be like, well, where do you rank the shows? But my problem is, they really are
big time commitment.
They really are. Well, but also they really are a different animal. Like,
absolutely.
I mean, they are and they aren't. It's really awkward. And I'm just wondering years from now how much of that stuff we're going to look back on and kind of ignore. Okay, we're totally going to end here in a second, but.
And let's do this video after Guardians 3 so I can put that on there. Let's do it.
I'm not sure yet. We'll talk about it. Although that's coming up soon, and I don't know that we'll get to this before that. But even if I wanted to, but something that I think this doesn't affect most people, maybe because a lot of people don't buy physical anymore. But I can't help but think I'm so old school about this stuff. I can't help but think that some of us old people that still buy physical media, I might think differently about the TV shows just by the virtue of their not being released on Blu-ray.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Where like
Yeah.
some of us might forget some of that stuff just because we don't own it.
Yeah, because it's weird. And I use Letterboxd for a lot of that ranking stuff, and like they don't have some of that anymore. Like especially stuff that gets another season. Like my last thing on my MCU ranking is just a movie called What If with Daniel Radcliffe. It's like, yeah, they don't have What If on there, so I just I put that in.
Yeah, you can't rank stuff that's not movies.
Yeah, and like they'll put miniseries, like that's nice at least. But
Okay.
Loki will be removed soon, I'm sure, with that getting a second season.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Oh, and we didn't talk about Secret Invasion at all.
That's because nobody remembers Secret Invasion's happening.
What sucks is that's one of the only things that I'm kind of interested in. Like
I still haven't seen the trailer.
It looks good. I don't know.